Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Man in American Comics. Start Regenerative Healing Factor. Chapter 121. Finally, Lu Chuang and Lorna finished their dinner. At the moment John also confirmed that there was no problem, walked out from the dark, and then walked to where the two were. When John came to the abandoned building, he happened to see Lu Chuang take out two exquisite and small cakes from the bag, handed one to Lorna, and then ate it again by himself. John, there are also desserts after meals, the taste is too much. Ahem, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. John coughed lightly, and drew the eyes of the two of them. My identity may not be convenient, so I need to be cautious. I hope you can understand. Well, although this is not the first time Dan and I have met, I am still my own. Let me introduce, I'm John, you can also call me Thunderbird. Seeing that John finally appeared, Lu Chuang quickly swallowed the cake in his mouth, and nodded solemnly. Hello, I am Lu Chuang, and this is Lorna, you can also call her Wu. My name is Polaris. Lorna interrupted Lu Chuang directly. Lu Chuang was stunned. Ah, why did you suddenly change your code name? Isn't the witch pretty good? How domineering. What is a code name change? I never said I wanted to be called a witch. Lorna grinned. In order to get rid of the ugly code name of witch as soon as possible, she checked the search engine overnight, and finally gave herself a code name that sounded good, at least much better than witch. After a brief acquaintance, John said to Lorna, I've heard about you, I think you did the right thing, you saved that child, but now you should understand that human beings have great influence on our mutant group. There's a big misunderstanding, and it's going to expose us to some injustice. Hearing John's words, Lorna was silent for a while. Anyway, I did nothing wrong. Tell me, what happened to my aunt now? John said, because of your matter, the agents of the Sentry Secret Service took your aunt away for investigation. Now she may be interrogated by the Sentry Secret Service, but don't worry, your aunt will not be in any danger. The Sentry Secret Service is not going to take action on an ordinary legal citizen, at most it can only be taken back for interrogation according to the procedure. Lorna clenched her fists and said angrily, my aunt is not in good health and cannot run around. Those bastards must have done it on purpose. No, I have to go back and have a look. Dan, calm down, John said seriously. This is a trap, they are trying to lure you back. Now your aunt's house is surrounded by Sentry Secret Service's eyeliners. As long as you go back, they will find you immediately. I'm not afraid of them, let them come anyway. Lorna has the ability to manipulate metal, and any firearm is a toy in her eyes. If Lorna didn't want to hurt anyone, the Sentry Secret Service agents who hunted her down would have been terribly cold. I heard about your ability from Ivan. I know that your ability is really powerful, but what you don't know is that there is a special weapon in the Sentry Secret Service. They named it Sentinel. Speaking of this, a trace of apprehension flashed in John's eyes. That is a weapon developed by a special department to deal with mutants. It is all made of non-metal. Your ability has no effect at all. Sentinel. Lu Chuang frowned when he heard this familiar word. The Sentinel you are talking about, shouldn't it be the kind of silver robot that can copy the mutant's ability and then switch ability at will? He has watched the X-Men series of movies before, so he naturally knows that this Sentinel is like a nightmare for mutants. Even a mutant as powerful as Magneto can't do anything to a Sentinel that is changeable and not made of metal. Definitely, for the real Magneto, whether it can deal with Sentinel is still unknown. But for the vast majority of mutants, Sentinel is definitely a crushing level existence. Even Lorna's ability is purely food delivery. Hearing this, Lorna couldn't help but widen her eyes. This Sentinel is so scary. John froze for a moment, shook his head and said, no, I have seen Sentinel once. It is similar to the shape of a spider. Its strength and speed are very strong. Once it is locked by them, it is difficult to escape. As for the one you mentioned, I think it is impossible to exist. John felt that Lu Chuang had heard some exaggerated rumors. The Sentinel that can copy the mutant ability, this ability is too perverted. John only needs to imagine a little bit, and he feels a chill on his back. If this kind of Sentinel really exists, it is undoubtedly similar to a nuclear bomb attack on mutant. At that time, will their mutant still have a way to survive? Lu Chuang nodded. If it's not that kind of Sentinel, then there is no problem, but the kind of Sentinel I mentioned really exists, but I don't know if anyone has made it now. John, don't scare me, you must be a liar, right? So you support me to go back? Lorna looked at Lu Chuang. Lu Chuang shook his head. Although that kind of sentinel is not a perverted version, but this big guy is right. The Sentry Secret Service has used so many tricks to lure you back. Now you go back and give away your head. Lorna said anxiously. Then what about my aunt? I can't just watch her suffer. It's okay, I have a way to ensure that your aunt will come back safe and sound. Lu Chuang showed a reassuring expression. John looked at Lu Chuang in surprise, but he still doesn't know whether it is a human or a mutant. Just seeing that Lorna seems to trust the other party, John temporarily believes that Lu Chuang is on their side, even if it is not mutant, at least he is a human being willing to help mutant. Therefore, he couldn't help but said, Lu, I want to remind you that the Sentry Secret Service is not so talkative, and they will never give up easily before they achieve their goals. Lu Chuang smiled slightly. You have super abilities, and so do I, but mine is money abilities. Money ability. Lu Chuang didn't explain, picked up the phone and dialed a number. Hey, is it Fudge? Yes, it's me. This time I have a big case for you and Lawyer Ma. Do you know about the Sentry Secret Service? Yes, it's the department responsible for the mutant case. It's nothing. I just want you to sue them. If you ask me what to prosecute, I think it's okay for Agent Turner's bald head to be unhappy. Okay, that's it. By the way, ask Lawyer Ma, did you find his concubine last time? After discussing with Fudge for a while, Lu Chuang hung up the phone, looked at Lorna and John and said, Fine, my lawyer said that your aunt will be released soon, and if the Sentry Secret Service is unwilling to release her, they can directly sue the Sentry Secret Service, and then I will hire more than a dozen media to hype it up. Maybe I can make a whole story about mutants' life is also life. 11. John. Lorna. As the saying goes, money is easy to do. Especially in this capitalist country, USD can often solve many problems, including the Sentry Secret Service, which caused headaches for both mutants, Lorna and John, and Lu Chuang can easily solve it with a single phone call. Looking at Lu Chuang's capitalist face, John hesitated to speak. I have to admit that this method is indeed much more effective, but it's a pity that these mutants can't learn it at all. After all, they only have super abilities and not money abilities. Thank you. Now I owe you twice. Seeing Lu Chuang ask a lawyer to help his aunt, Lorna's tense nerves finally relaxed, and she became that cold girl again, but she still looked at Lu Chuang gratefully. It's just a small matter. Lu Chuang waved his hand indifferently. In order for Lorna to be a tool worker in his family with peace of mind, he will naturally not sit idly by on such things. At this time, Lu Chuang looked at John with great interest. But I'm curious, why did you know that the Sentry Secret Service took her aunt away? When Lorna heard this, she suddenly felt something was wrong. That's right, even she didn't know that something happened to her aunt. As an outsider, John knew better than her. Thinking of this, Lorna looked at John with unkind eyes. This situation made it hard for her not to think of some conspiracy theories. John didn't expect the topic to be brought to him suddenly, but John quickly reacted and explained. Don't get me wrong, I heard about Dan, and I originally wanted to find her through the residence and provide her with help, so I accidentally found out about her aunt. Then how did you find me? Lorna asked. Some members of our organization are relatively proficient in this area. John said very vaguely, and these information related to their internal affairs cannot be disclosed casually. Micro-expression analysis is the basic operation of a spy, and Lu Chuang can see that John really has no trace of lying. Definitely, John must have concealed some things. Lu Chuang doesn't think that John helped Lorna for no reason. Without Lu Chuang thinking about the reason, John took the initiative to say, Dane, now that we know what happened to you, we are very willing to provide you with help and protection. John looked at Lorna sincerely. As I said, the ultimate goal of our mutant underground organization is to protect all compatriots who are being persecuted. Similarly, we need more compatriots to join, especially powerful mutants like you. Dan, we need you, the mutant underground organization needs you. Hearing his words, Lu Chuang was not happy at that time. What does that mean? Someone who snatched him in his face. Just when Lu Chuang was about to pull out his pistol to reason with John, Lorna shook her head. Sorry, I also said that I have no plans to join your organization, and now I have a new place to go. If it was when she was first wanted by the Sentry Secret Service, Lorna might have considered John's invitation, but during this time she has almost adapted to her current life, and she has no reason to live in a new environment. Recalling the conversation on the phone, John knew what Lorna was referring to, and said in a deep voice, "I can understand your thoughts, but there is one thing I need to confess to you. You might change your mind after listening to it." Quote. As he spoke, John glanced at Lu Chuang. Obviously the conversation that followed was one that Lu Chuang couldn't listen to. Lu Chuang shrugged wisely. "You guys talk, I am not interested in gossip." Quote. Why does this sound so familiar? Immediately afterwards, Lu Chuang walked a certain distance. Seeing Lu Chuang standing in the distance with his back to them, John couldn't help but relax his guard. In his mind, it was impossible for ordinary people to eavesdrop at this distance, unless the other party had the same super hearing as him. Without thinking about it, John said to Lorna, "Dan, remember what I said, it was Ivan who asked me to come to you." "Yes, but what does it have to do with her?" John said with a serious expression. "Actually, it's not Ivan who is looking for you, but X-Men." FK. With his amazing hearing, John caught Lu Chuang who was standing in the distance and suddenly exclaimed. John was dumbfounded for a moment, and looked at Lu Chuang in surprise, when he heard Lu Chuang look at the old books of the enemy. FK, forgot to buy a drink. John breathed a sigh of relief. He thought Lu Chuang had overheard their conversation. Lorna didn't have John's good hearing. She looked at John weirdly. "Are you kidding me? X-Men, isn't that a fairy tale? For their mutants, X-Men is a mutant organization that only exists in the story, because no one has ever seen this organization. Some mutants even believe that X-Men is the product of some mutant YYs, just like humans imagined aliens, and made some fake pictures and news to say that aliens invaded the Earth is real. Lorna also doesn't think the X-Men story is true. If that kind of organization really existed, how could they have fallen to the present state?" John said very seriously, "This is not a fairy tale, the X-Men are real." "What evidence do you have?" Lorna looked disbelieving. John said in a deep voice, "Ivan told me this personally. She found me and chose me to be the leader of the mutant underground organization. In fact, it was X-Men's intention. Ivan asked me to invite you to join the mutant underground organization. Men mean, in fact, that Ivan didn't choose us, but the X-Men chose us." "X-Men choose me." Lorna was silent. John thought she was shocked by this incident, but then heard Lorna whisper, "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old girl?" She doesn't know much about the X-Men story, but based on the information she has seen before, she only knows that it is a mutant organization dedicated to the harmonious existence between humans and mutants. It is said that most of the members are mutants with a strong ability, and its leader even established a mutant academy on the territory of America, which specializes in recruiting mutant students, teaching them knowledge, and enabling them to use their abilities reasonably. And this is one of the important reasons why Lorna doesn't believe in the existence of X-Men. This is like a group of heavily armed blacks who set up a black school in New York to teach them to use guns and even nuclear weapons. How can the American government tolerate this alone? If it is true, then how terrifying is this organization? Lorna couldn't imagine it. And now, John actually said that this legendary mutant organization chose him. In Lorna's opinion, this sentence is even more nonsense than Lu Chuang's usual fooling little Peter, saying that Ultraman chose him to become the light. Altman is fake. X-Men is also fake. Knowing that Lorna wouldn't believe it easily, John tried to explain, "I know it sounds unbelievable, but the X-Men are real." Lorna crossed her arms and asked, "If according to what you said, the X-Men are real, why haven't they appeared all the time, and Ivan is needed to send a message for them, and with their ability, they want to help us, aren't our countrymen easier to accomplish than us?" These questions were so sharp that John didn't know how to answer them for a while. After all, the reality is right in front of our eyes. For so many years, mutants have been the lowest level characters in society and have suffered various unfair treatments, especially the Mutant Act. The above laws and regulations are simply aimed at the mutant group. During this period, mutants tried to organize and protest, but the results were unsatisfactory every time. The American government didn't care about their mutants' opinions at all. They didn't see the X-Men show up once in this mutant's toughest time. John could only helplessly say, "Maybe they have their own reasons." Lorna pouted. "So you don't know either, right?" Quote. Yes. Faced with Lorna's doubts, John sighed. To be honest, I don't know the authenticity of this matter, but Ivan once revealed some information to me. The emergence of the Mutant Underground organization is actually the X-Men's plan. In order to save more compatriots who are persecuted. I go. Lu Chuang's exclamation came again, and John immediately turned his head to look at Lu Chuang's position, but heard Lu Chuang clap his palms and muttered to himself, "What a big mosquito." The corners of John's mouth twitched slightly. This startle was meant to scare Deadman. If that's the case, why didn't Ivan come to me in person? Lorna asked. She has more important things to do. John smiled bitterly. You should be very aware of how bad our situation is now. In places we don't know, there are still many innocent mutants who have become victims of the latest mutant act. Some mutants are not as lucky as you to escape capture by Sentry Secret Service. Lorna frowned. What happened to them? Very bad. John shook his head. His face was a little ugly. The Sentry Secret Service put flea collars around their necks, preventing them from using their mutant ability, and then put them in ordinary prisons, staying with the real criminals. You may not know that mutant suffers from more discrimination inside the prison than outside, both from the prisoners and from the guards. Just listening to John's narration, Luna could feel the despair of those mutants. In America's prisons, discrimination is a very normal phenomenon, discrimination against blood, skin color, homosexuality. However, mutant is different. Because the criminals in ordinary prisons have one thing in common, that is, they are all human beings. In prison, those mutants who are imprisoned innocently will be left alone. Even if they unite, what they have to face is the criminals in the entire prison. Mutants who cannot use mutant abilities are basically similar to ordinary people. How could they be opponents of a group of vicious criminals? How depressing and hopeless it would be in such an environment. Thinking of how he was almost arrested by the Sentry Secret Service, Lorna felt chills all over his body. At that time, if Lu Chuang hadn't saved herself, I'm afraid she would have stayed in prison, right? It is for this reason that Ivan is forming branches of the Mutant Underground organization in various cities. We want to save more compatriots who are persecuted by the Mutant Act and provide them with safe housing so that they can live in this land. John still didn't give up the idea of persuading Lorna. He said with a serious expression, I have served in the army, and I know some things better than you. Now the situation is different, and mutants' situation will only become more and more difficult. Maybe someday in the future, the government will take certain measures against us, and then we will have no way to resist. So, we must prepare in advance, and the Mutant Underground organization will be our last bastion of survival, but we are not enough, Dan, we need you. Lorna was silent for a few seconds, and asked, why do you have to find me, can't you find someone else? John confessed, because your ability is stronger than ours. The Sentry Secret Service will never allow us to exist. We need more mutants with strong abilities to join in to fight against the Sentry Secret Service, and you are the best candidate, and... Speaking of this, John suddenly paused, and it seems that Ping's next words are a bit difficult to say. Cut Gigi out of context. Lu Chuang muttered in a low voice. The corner of John's mouth twitched slightly, and he couldn't help asking Lorna, I have a question, can your companion hear us? I didn't, so don't talk nonsense. Before Lorna could reply, John heard Lu Chuang muttering to himself. John. Hearing that John suddenly stopped talking, Lu Chuang simply didn't bother to continue pretending. He turned around and walked back, explaining to John, beforehand, I didn't eavesdrop. It's just that you guys were talking too loudly just now, so I accidentally overheard something. Really, Lorna can testify for me, she is to understand me. Lorna, yes, I know him, this guy must have eavesdropped. Are you a mutant? John said in a deep voice. Judging from Lu Chuang's performance, he didn't look like an ordinary person. John naturally thought that Lu Chuang was the same kind of person as them. No, Lu Chuang categorically denied that. Although he was injected with the same serum as Wade, his genes have not been mutated, so he is 100% human, which is beyond doubt. Seeing this, John shook his head. Due to social reasons, many mutants are unwilling to admit their identities. They try to pretend to be normal humans and blend into the mainstream society. In John's view, Lu Chuang should also be a person who is unwilling to accept himself mutant. It's okay, I understand you. John patted Lu Chuang's shoulder reassuringly. Lu Chuang looked puzzled. He felt like he had imagined something weird. However, Lu Chuang didn't care about it, and put his arms around John's shoulders, looking like two brothers. Brother John, I seem to have heard you guys discussing X-Men just now. What a coincidence, I am very fond of X-Men. Interested, why don't we talk about it? Interest is quite interesting, but it is not enough for Lu Chuang to ask specifically like he is now. What really made Lu Chuang make this decision was actually his game system. Open black lens bracket title trigger, close black lens bracket. Big news, can be completed. Unlocking conditions. Do X-Men really exist, and if so, why did they suddenly disappear? Is the moral degeneration or the distortion of human nature behind all this? Please investigate the truth behind the X-Men. Open black lens bracket title obtained. Super high school level reporter close black lens bracket. Lu Chuang triggered this new achievement task when he eavesdropped. Oh no, accidentally overheard the conversation between Lorna and John. At that time, Lu Chuang was stunned. After all, it was the first time he had seen such a long unlocking condition. After seeing the last sentence, Lu Chuang realized that this was to let him investigate the X-Men. However, Lu Chuang still feels weird. How could a good sci-fi painting style suddenly turn into a suspenseful painting style? Should it be said that it is really worthy of the Danganronpa system? This wave does not forget the original intention. Now that the achievement task is triggered, Lu Chuang will definitely not let it go. As for X-Men, Lu Chuang knows a lot. He has watched every movie, even the worst ending, Dark Phoenix. The plot of the movie is still in his mind. But the thing is, the X-Men franchise has a downside. That is, the timeline is very fragmented. After reversing the future, the entire universe has undergone a restart. Both the story and the characters have undergone earth-shaking changes. It can be said that the story development of the two timelines is completely different. There is no way to make a judgment based on the known plot. Moreover, whether it is the plot of the movie version is still unknown. You know, there were two X-Men in the original Deadpool plot, but in reality, only Lu Chuang and Wade fought against Francis and Sandstorm Angel Gina, and as the supporting roles of Colossus and Warhead, Lu Chuang connected them from beginning to end. I've never seen a shadow of him, let alone any other X-Men. Realizing that there was a big discrepancy between the reality and the plot in his memory, Lu Chuang immediately decided to start the investigation from John, the insider, to see if he could get some information. Lu, eavesdropping is not good. John had a headache, and it seems a little late to say it now, who knows how much this guy has been eavesdropping secretly. Don't talk nonsense, I didn't eavesdrop, I just overheard something. Lu Chuang corrected John's words, and then asked, by the way, who is that Ivan you are talking about? Did you hear a little bit? This clearly means you heard everything. John's expression was stiff, and he could still trust Lorna, but he didn't know anything about Lu Chuang, a stranger before, and he didn't know what would happen if he revealed such an important secret to the other party. Lorna next to her didn't have so many scruples. She explained calmly, Ivan is a lawyer, but she is also a mutant, and she often helps mutant with lawsuits. When I was not yet proficient in my ability, I accidentally destroyed a street lamp. It was Ivan who came forward to help me deal with it. Is she an X-Men? Lu Chuang asked. Seeing that Lorna gave out all the information, John sighed, gave up struggling and replied, Ivan is not X-Men, she is just connected with X-Men. Lu Chuang was thoughtful. It seemed that this woman named Ivan was the key. The other party might be an important clue to know the truth about the X-Men. Then he had to find an opportunity to get in touch with her. While Lu Chuang was thinking, Lorna looked at John and said, Tell Ivan, I am very grateful for her help to me, but your organization, sorry, I still have no idea to join now. Even though John said a big deal, Lorna's attitude is still very firm. John feels helpless about this. After hearing about Lorna's misfortune, he wanted to take this opportunity to invite Lorna to join them, otherwise they would not have worked hard to find her. Contact details to Lorna. Unfortunately, they were cut off by Lu Chuang. John sighed secretly. He even moved out of X-Men. Lorna still didn't agree. What else could he do about it? Since you don't want to join us, then I won't say more, but I want you to help a busy. This is a personal request, very important to me. John finally said what he hadn't finished just now, with a serious expression on his face. Originally, He expected that after Lorna joined their mutant underground organization, he would take advantage of the opportunity to tell the matter, but now that no one has been invited, John can't make sure whether Lorna is willing to help him. Lorna asked in surprise, "What's the matter?" John looked serious. "One of our companions was captured by the Sentry Secret Service and imprisoned. Her name is Clarice, and I need your ability to rescue her." Open black lens bracket title trigger, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket prison break, achievable close black lens bracket. Unlock condition. Rescue Clarice Ferguson, a member of the Mutant Underground Organization, 0/1. Title: Super High School Architect. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Lu Chuang, who was still thinking, was suddenly stunned. What situation triggered a new achievement task? In a short period of time, 2 achievement tasks were triggered consecutively. This is something Lu Chuang has never encountered. After such a long period of exploration, Lu Chuang has summed up some experience in the trigger mechanism of the game system. When he encounters certain important events or characters, the game system will more easily trigger new achievement tasks, and the unlocking conditions are necessarily related to related events or characters, which is very consistent with the settings in the original game. Now it seems that the X-Men and John should trigger the new achievement task respectively. After being surprised, Lu Chuang felt ecstasy in his heart. For him, the more missions to accomplish, the better. Only in this way can he have the opportunity to unlock more super high school level talents. However, Lu Chuang remained calm on the surface, and he was not in a hurry to agree to John's request for Lorna. Hearing John's request, Lorna frowned and said, "You want me to help you break the prison?" Not to mention the crime of robbing a prison, the difficulty of robbing a prison is definitely not low. Even if Lorna has never seen it, she knows that the prison must be heavily guarded, especially those prisons where mutants are held. There is a high probability that they will encounter agents from the Sentry Secret Service. By doing so, they will undoubtedly put themselves in huge amounts of danger among. John saw what Lorna was thinking, and explained, "Don't worry, we didn't plan to break into the prison directly. According to our intelligence, our companion was locked in a cell in the headquarters of the Sentry Secret Service area, but she quickly will be transferred to a prison by Sentry Secret Service, so our plan is to rescue our companions during the transfer." Lorna has some hesitation. In any case, this is an attack on Sentry Secret Service, and the risks are no less. Forced by the danger that his companion was about to face, John ignored Lu Chuang, who was present, and said sincerely to Lorna, "I know this is dangerous, but we have no other way, we need your strength." Facing John's request, Lorna got into a tangle. As a mutant, Lorna is willing to help John and the others in her heart. If Lorna could stand on the sidelines, she would not have rescued the mutant child. But it was also that incident that made Lorna have some scruples. If she chooses to help John, she will inevitably provoke the Sentry Secret Service again, which may bring some unnecessary troubles. Although Lorna wanted to help, she didn't want to see her life being affected again, and BDBB, she didn't want to implicate Lu Chuang around her because of this incident, just like her aunt. Sensing Lorna's strangeness, Lu Chuang knew it was time to play, and cleared his throat. "Brother John, have you forgotten me?" "What?" Lu Chuang stared into John's eyes, and said seriously, "Is it just the huge power hidden in the body?" John: 1. Sorry, I really don't feel it. You've found the wrong person. I'm better at robbing prisons than she is," Lu Chuang said confidently. John looked at Lu Chuang, and because he had been paying attention to Lorna, he almost ignored Lu Chuang. Now John has determined that Lu Chuang is a mutant, but he still can't confirm what Lu Chuang's variant ability is. Although Lu Chuang has shown that his hearing is beyond ordinary people, John feels that Lu Chuang's variant ability is not necessarily this. Just like him, not only has superhuman hearing ability, but also has super perception and a steel-like body. Considering that he was in urgent need of help, John asked, "May I ask, what is your ability?" "Camouflage." Lu Chuang smiled mysteriously. After the words fell, his body suddenly changed. Under the astonished eyes of John and Lorna, Lu Chuang transformed into a tall man wearing military boots, which was exactly the same as John. This. Lorna opened her mouth slightly. She looked at Lu Chuang, and then at John, but she couldn't find the difference between the two. Even the distribution of beards was exactly the same, even twins couldn't be so similar. This guy actually has this kind of ability. Lu Chuang has never shown his camouflage in front of others, so it is the first time for Lorna to see such a magical camouflage of Lu Chuang. Even John was taken aback. Standing in front of Lu Chuang, he felt as if he was looking in a mirror. This feeling was very weird. How about it, isn't it great? Lu Chuang said. His voice was exactly the same as John's. John nodded subconsciously, and had to admit that Lu Chuang's ability was indeed very powerful. Even he himself couldn't see anything wrong with Lu Chuang's disguise, let alone other people. John couldn't help thinking that if Lu Chuang returned to the Mutant Underground organization with this image, even his closest girlfriend would probably not find out that John in front of him was fake. Thinking of this, John suddenly felt his head was a little green, and quickly asked, "Can you change into other images?" Definitely. Lu Chuang was thinking about what image he wanted to become, and the light naturally fell on Lorna. Change into someone else, don't become me. Lorna felt a chill. Seeing Lu Chuang become someone else is okay, but changing into her is definitely unacceptable. Anyone who sees a person who looks exactly the same standing in front of myself, I will inevitably feel uncomfortable in my heart. Lu Chuang curled his lips bored, and then changed into the image of Phil Coulson. Even the hairline is imitated vividly. But after a few seconds, Lu Chuang changed back to his own appearance. He was afraid that if he disguised himself as Phil Coulson for a long time, his hairline would become so outstanding. Who knows if the hairline can be repaired through self-healing? This kind of thing is better to be on the safe side. However, John had already seen Lu Chuang's ability, and his heart was filled with excitement. John, who used to be a soldier, knows how terrifying this ability is. He can perfectly disguise himself as anyone, which means that Lu Chuang can easily lurk beside anyone without being discovered. With such ability, Lu Chuang does have a chance to rescue his companion. John quickly realized that he suppressed the excitement in his heart and looked at Lu Chuang with fiery eyes. "Are you willing to help us?" "I don't want to." Lu Chuang shook his head decisively. "John." Lu Chuang looked serious. "Rescue your companion, I have to face the Sentry Secret Service. You know how dangerous they are. If the Sentry Secret Service finds out, even I may be arrested and thrown into prison." John knew it was not so easy, and sighed. "I know this matter has nothing to do with you, but Clarice is my companion, I can't give up on her. If you are willing to help me, I owe you a favor. If you need any help in the future, you can come to me." "I think you've misunderstood." Lu Chuang solemnly raised his index finger and thumb, making a gesture that all human beings understand. "I mean, money." John, looking at Lu Chuang's gesture of rubbing his two fingers non-stop, John was stunned. He thought Lu Chuang was worried about the troubles of Sentry's Secret Service, but he was really caught off guard by such a sudden reversal. However, Lu Chuang's words made John see hope, as long as he didn't directly refuse. John asked, "How much do you want?" "For the sake of reminding Lorna, let me give you a friendly price, 1 million USD. Lu Chuang shook his head and raised a finger, with an expression of "Your blood making me a blood loss." "Many? How many?" John suspected that he had heard it wrong. It was not until Lu Chuang repeated it patiently that he was sure that it was not his auditory hallucinations, but Lu Chuang's vision problems. He said bitterly, "You see, I seem to have. Does it look like 1 million USD? Seeing that John was wearing a vest on his upper body, his two solid arms were exposed, and his lower body was wearing a pair of worn-out cheap trousers, Lu Chuang shook his head. "It really doesn't look like it, it looks like it's only 100 USD. John, although you are telling the truth, can't you be more tactful?" John showed a look of embarrassment, and said with some lack of confidence, "Can you have a little less? I don't have so much money." "Then how much can you take out?" "About 10,000 United States dollars. Lu Chuang raised his eyebrows slightly, and questioned, "You are the leader of the Mutant Underground organization, why are you so poor, and what is the activity fund of your organization?" John explained with a frowning face, "Our organization doesn't have much money available, because we don't have a sustainable source of income. Usually we rely on some rich people who are friendly to Mutant for relief. In return, we help them do some legal work. Things, with this kind of money we can barely maintain the operation of the organization." After Ivan formed the Mutant Underground organization, he threw the stall directly to John, and did not provide much material help. If John hadn't passed his comrades, found the relief of some rich people, their organization has long since collapsed. Even so, their mutant underground organization still doesn't have much money. Not to mention $1 million USD, even the 10,000 United States dollars John had to spend some time getting together. Lu Chuang could tell that John wasn't lying, and shook his head. Since you have no money, then I won't make it difficult for you. Let 10,000 United States dollars be 10,000 United States dollars. Thank you very much. For the rest of the money, you give me an IOU, and it will be calculated according to the bank's interest. 11. John swallowed the words of thanks in an instant. He didn't expect that there would be such an operation as an IOU. John couldn't help looking at Lorna. He wanted to change back to Lorna. There was no other meaning. He thought Lorna was more reliable, definitely not because he had no money. It's just that Lorna was a little moved by Lu Chuang's words just now. For the sake of reminding Lorna, she lowered her head and counted the ants, pretending not to see John's gaze. Girls are just so fickle sometimes. Seeing that Lorna couldn't go this way, John gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, no problem." Fresh enough, worthy of being a leader. After seeing John agreeing, Lu Chuang said cheerfully, "I've accepted your commission, but I didn't bring a pen and paper with me when I went out. We'll make up for the IOU later. First, tell me about your companions, and what's your plan?" "Anyway, Lu Chuang is finally willing to help himself," John said seriously. "We have already obtained some information. Clarice will be transferred 2 days later, and there will be a team from the Sentry Secret Service as an escort team to transfer by truck Clarice. So, our plan is to intercept the convoy and the truck during Clarice's transfer, and get Clarice before Sentry Secret Service responds." "I see, so how are you going to intercept that truck?" Lu Chuang asked with a serious expression, as if he was a professional. The money was not wasted. Anyway, John has already been fooled by Lu Chuang's acting skills, and he can't help but feel that Lu Chuang doesn't seem to be unreliable on the outside. "Actually, we haven't thought of a solution to this problem yet. Our plan is to intercept the truck without causing the Sentry Secret Service to find out, and try to avoid a head-on conflict with the Sentry Secret Service. But my companions, they none of the abilities can do that." Having said that, John glanced at Lorna. Lu Chuang suddenly realized, no wonder John kept saying that he needed Lorna's help. This task is indeed very suitable for Lorna. For Lorna, who has the ability to control metal, it is not difficult to stop a truck. Lorna also understood this point. Instead of counting ants with her head down, she raised her head and said indifferently, "Leave the task of intercepting the truck to me." Now that Lu Chuang agrees to help John, she has nothing to worry about. "Then I'll trouble you." John's eyes lit up. "And it's great that Lorna is willing to help, and the most important thing is that the other party doesn't need to spend money." With the participation of Lu Chuang and Lorna, John was more confident about the next rescue operation, and took the initiative to briefly describe his arrangement. After hearing that, Lu Chuang felt that there was no problem, so he made an appointment with John to start the operation 2 days later. Before leaving, Lu Chuang did not forget about the IOU. Since it was difficult to buy pens and paper around this time, Lu Chuang led John with a dazed face to the corner and prevented Lorna from following. Grief and indignation left. Ignoring Lorna's strange eyes, Lu Chuang looked at the photos on his phone and nodded in satisfaction. As for the X-Men intel, Lu Chuang was not in a hurry to investigate. He had to eat slowly, and wait for him to complete another achievement task. Anyway, with these photos in his mobile phone, Lu Chuang is not afraid of John running away. 2 days later, Lu Chuang and Lorna came to an abandoned factory according to the agreed time. John has been waiting here for a long time. However, this time John was not alone. There were 3 figures standing beside him. Seeing the arrival of Lu Chuang and Lorna, John immediately came over to greet them. "You are finally here. Let me introduce you. These 3 are my companions and members of the Mutant Underground Organization. They will assist us this time action." The wine-red long-haired woman standing on John's right smiled at Lorna and said, "I met Miss Dan before. Do you still remember me?" "Remember, your name is Sophia," Lorna said calmly. In front of unfamiliar people, Lorna maintains her usual high cold image. Her gestures are full of force, and she doesn't know who she learned this pretending skill from. In order to facilitate the next action, John briefly introduced his companion. The Mexican with the beard is named Marcos, and his code name is Eclipse. Ability can absorb, store and release solar energy. Simply put, it is a mobile light source, which sounds useless. It was the other two mutants that aroused Lu Chuang's interest. Especially the red-haired woman named Sophia. Her code name is Sweet Dreamer. She possesses the ability to modify other people's memory. It is a very terrifying ability. In a sense, this ability is even better than Lorna's ability Be Strong. Modifying other people's memories, isn't this equivalent to the magical skill, Bitenjin, in Naruto? Imagine if the ability user modifies someone's memory to be his slave, but the victim himself doesn't notice it at all, but thinks that his memory should be like this, and he is the ability user's slave. How can ability not make everyone feel intimidated? Who can guarantee whether your current memory is true? However, Lu Chuang guessed that Sophia's ability should have some limitations. If Suophia can really modify other people's memories at will, John directly asks Suophia to modify the memories of the Sentry Secret Service agents, release their companions, and it's over, and there is no need for the help of himself and Lorna. As for the remaining strong black man, his ability is also quite special. He can blend into the surrounding environment to achieve an effect similar to invisibility, which is the ability that many people dream of. Is this all you have? Lu Chuang asked in surprise. He found that the abilities of these mutants were all auxiliary abilities, and the only one with combat abilities was John, a big guy with steel and iron bones. You must know that the target of their attack later is the Sentry Secret Service. Regardless of the nature of this institution, the Sentry Secret Service is also a government department with armed forces, and all staff must be equipped with firearms. Even for mutants with special abilities, except for mutants with strengthening bodies like John, the bodies of other mutants are mostly similar to normal people, even Lorna is no exception. People get shot and get hurt. If a confrontation suddenly broke out between the two sides, John and his companions would basically not be able to provide much help. John nodded helplessly. Yes, our mutant underground organization has been established for a relatively short period of time, and we haven't recruited many people yet, and we still need some members to stay behind. This is all the power we can use. I see. While Lu Chuang was looking at John and others, the members of the mutant underground organization were also looking at Lu Chuang. John didn't mention the 1 million USD to them, so they only knew that Lu Chuang was John's temporary helper. Also learned the basic information of Lu Chuang. Marcus asked curiously. I heard that your ability is shapeshifting, can you show us? Can. Lu Chuang shrugged indifferently. While speaking, his image suddenly changed, and he became John's appearance worth 100 USD again. My god, this is too similar. Marcus was a little shocked. Sophia and the black burly man also had surprised expressions on their faces. Lu Chuang's disguise was so flawless, if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, I'm afraid they would have thought that Lu Chuang was really John. Even though John had already seen Lu Chuang's camouflage technique, he couldn't help sighing at this moment. With Lu's cooperation, I believe we can definitely rescue Clarice. Lu Chuang didn't change back, and asked John like this, by the way, does the Clarice you mentioned have a title? John didn't know why he asked this question, but he still replied, her name is Blink, and ability opens a special channel for long-distance teleportation. As long as we save her, we can use her ability to leave here immediately. It turned out to be Flickering. Lu Chuang said that the name sounded familiar. It turned out to be one of the characters that appeared in the X-Men movie, and the actor of that movie was a well-known domestic actress at that time, so Lu Chuang still had a deep impression of Blink of. No wonder John dared to attack the Sentry Secret Service alone with 3 assistants. As long as they save Blink, with Blink's teleportation ability, it's really not difficult for them to escape safely from the encirclement of the Sentry Secret Service. Judging from the performance of film and television works, Blink's escape ability is absolutely top-notch. She can open the space door at will to teleport anywhere. Being one of the few X-Men who survived to the end is enough to explain the problem. It's also not known how the Sentry Secret Service people caught Blink. This road is the necessary route for Clarice's escort truck, and the escort convoy will arrive here soon. Then it will be up to you, Lorna, to use your ability to intercept the escort convoy. Located on the roof of the factory, John pointed to the road outside, and said in a deep voice to Lorna. I see. Lorna nodded. At this moment, the door on the roof of the factory opened suddenly, and Sophia came up and saw John and Lorna arranging actions. Sophia leaned over to John. John, Marcus and the others are already in place, waiting for your instructions. Sophia is John's girlfriend, so her behavior is relatively intimate. When she talks, she almost sticks to John's body. It is a normal behavior for couples, but John in front of her said seriously, Sophia is small sister, please respect yourself, I am a decent person, and your boyfriend is still watching, it is not good. Before Sophia figured out what was going on, she saw Lorna looking at herself coldly, if you're looking for John, he's over there. Sophia was taken aback for a moment, then turned to look in the direction Luo pointed. I saw another John standing on the edge of the roof, his face seemed a little green. Originally, John was on the top of the building through his hearing, eavesdropping on the surrounding situation all the time, but when he turned his head, he saw his girlfriend pounced on another person. Sophia, she really didn't mean it, and she didn't know that Lu Chuang hadn't changed back until now. Lu, can you change back first? John said gloomily, and Sophia who was beside him nodded repeatedly, and now she dared not blink her eyes, for fear of being distracted and mistaking her boyfriend again. What are you thinking? We are going to attack the Sentry Secret Service later on. What if they see my appearance and reveal my true identity? Lu Chuang said with reason and evidence, and he did it out of prudence. After hearing Lu Chuang's explanation, John felt even more uncomfortable. You were right, but the problem is that you are using my image, you are not exposed, but if something goes wrong, I will take the blame for you. At this moment, John suddenly frowned, listening attentively. After a while, John said hurriedly, they are coming, get ready. Accompanied by John's voice, a special convoy appeared at the end of everyone's line of sight, escorted by a black armored vehicle at the front, followed by several vehicles with the logo of the Sentry Secret Service, and in the center of the convoy was a fully enclosed truck. That's the truck that escorted Clarice, I can hear Clarice in it. John pointed to the truck and said to Lorna, I'll see you next. No, Lorna replied lightly. Waiting for the convoy to arrive at the designated location they had arranged in advance, green smoke burst out of Lorna's hands instantly. Following her control, the fixing screws of the truck tires suddenly fell off, and the entire tire wheel was detached from the vehicle body. The moving truck suddenly sparked, and the convoy stopped immediately when they noticed the movement. Immediately afterwards, I saw heavily armed Sentry Secret Service agents coming out of the car. Among them, Lu Chuang also saw Agent Turner who had met once before. His bald head was extremely dazzling under the sun. What's going on? Agent Turner walked towards his colleague who was inspecting the car. It should be a screw that fell off. I don't know the reason for now. We need some time to repair it. Agent Turner frowned. Damn it, Mutant did it. This detective is a bit confused. How did you come to this conclusion? However, what he doesn't know is that Agent Turner is a human being who hates Mutant extremely, and even has a tendency to persecution paranoia. In the eyes of Agent Turner, any bad thing has something to do with Mutant anyway. Agent Turner, I think it might just be a mechanical problem. It must be Mutant. Immediately block the scene and search the surrounding area. Clear. They started to make arrangements. Could it be that we were discovered so quickly? Sophia wondered. Even Lorna felt strange. She thought she had done enough concealment. How did the Sentry Secret Service find out? There was a little accident. John felt a little headache when he heard the conversation below. He didn't expect that there was Agent Turner in the escort convoy. The development of this strange thing was a bit beyond his expectation. John, they are searching the area, we have to act quickly. Marcus's voice came from the communicator in John's hand. Knowing the urgency of the situation, John didn't have time to think too much, and immediately said, okay, follow our plan, let Jason go over to check the situation and then leave it to Lou. At this time, there was a sudden electric current sound from the communicator, terminating their communication. No signal. Just when Lu Chuang was surprised, he saw something wrong with the expressions of John and others. Sophia raised his hands and said in shock, my ability has failed. John made a listening posture, and after trying it out, he frowned and said, me too, I can't hear the sound from the truck anymore. Lorna didn't speak, and continued to pretend to be a master. But Lu Chuang caught a flash of green light in her hand, and it was obvious that her ability was also affected. Lu Chuang wondered if he had to pretend, otherwise he would look a bit out of place. John seemed to think of something, and said in disbelief, "Wait, this is the ability of Pulse. How is it possible? Didn't Pulse die a long time ago?" Suophia asked in surprise. Lu Chuang asked curiously, "Who is the Pulse you are talking about?" John quickly explained, "Pulse is our former companion. His ability can interfere with the system, shut down electronic equipment, and also interfere with the mutant's ability. The range is at least 2 blocks, but I thought Pulse was dead in the Sentry Secret Service Placement Center during an attack." After listening to John's words, Lu Chuang somewhat guessed how Clarice was caught. This ability is simply a natural enemy for most mutants. "You think that's why you didn't see him die, did you?" "Yes, that's simple. Your companion didn't die, and became a helper of Sentry's Secret Service." Lu Chuang quickly made a judgment based on his own experience. "Impossible. Impulse is our companion, he can't betray us." John denied it without any hesitation. He didn't think Impulse would betray them. "It's not necessarily a betrayal. Your companions may have been brainwashed by the Sentry Secret Service." Lu Chuang said that it is not surprising. Brainwashing is not a rare thing in the Marvel world. Anyone who is not cheating may be brainwashed. "You're right, Bucky." John could barely accept Lu Chuang's statement, and said eagerly, "If this is the case, we are in big trouble. As long as Pulse's ability is always on, our ability cannot be used. The only way now is to find Pulse and let him turn off his ability." Their original plan was to let Lorna intercept the convoy. Taking advantage of the time gap, Lu Chuang and the black man who could be invisible sneaked into the truck where Clarice was being held, and then secretly rescued Clarice. But now, the emergence of Pulse completely disrupted their plan. With Pulsed ability suppression, their mutant abilities cannot be used at all, except for John, a veteran who still has a little combat power. The others are almost no different from ordinary people. Including Lorna with a powerful ability. Lorna without the ability to manipulate metal is just an ordinary girl. This team against the heavily armed Sentry Secret Service is no different from my death." Lu Chuang shook his head resolutely, and said seriously, "It will take time to find the Pulse you mentioned." At that time, the people from the Sentry Secret Service had already changed the tires and left. "We must rescue Clarice before they leave. It seems that the stealth plan needs to be revised." Plan B, let me sneak in alone." Lu Chuang took out his 2 guns. Having experienced several battles, a palpitating and powerful aura erupted from his body. John's hairs stood on end. Others may not feel it, but as a veteran, he can. He clearly felt that Lu Chuang was exuding a terrifying evil spirit, which could not be condensed without killing anyone. John swallowed. He felt that Lu Chuang seemed to have misunderstood, and reminded, "Lu, our plan is to stealth, not to fight. Don't worry, I'm proficient at sneaking." Lu Chuang took out a few grenades to ensure sufficient firepower. John, Sophia, Lorna. Under the ghost-like eyes of several people, Lu Chuang checked the equipment on his body, and after confirming that there was no problem, he turned around and was about to leave the roof. As a result, after walking a few steps, Lu Chuang found a hand holding his arm. Following along, it turned out to be Lorna. "There are people from Sentry Secret Service outside, it's dangerous to go out now." After knowing Lu Chuang's plan, Lorna wanted to prevent Lu Chuang from leaving. Although she has seen Lu Chuang make a move and knows that Lu Chuang's strength is not easy, but facing so many Sentry Secret Service agents, and Lu Chuang is only one person, the difference in numbers between the two sides is really too big. Lorna does not want to see Lu Chuang death in vain. "It's okay, if I encounter any danger, I can pretend to be someone else and run away directly," Lu Chuang calmly said. After hearing his words, several people realized that Lu Chuang's disguise had not disappeared, and the image of John was still on the surface. Obviously, Lu Chuang was not disturbed by the Pulse ability. John, who had already identified Lu Chuang as a mutant, couldn't help being surprised, and then he was overjoyed. It was a good thing for them that Lu Chuang's ability was not affected. John said decisively, "I am with you, I still have the fighting ability, I can assist you." Quote, "Okay, keep up." Lu Chuang didn't talk nonsense, and quickly left the roof after speaking. Lorna didn't stop after seeing this. "Suophia, inform Marcos and Jason of the plan change, and you go to location B to gather together. John handed the communicator to Sophia, and followed Lu Chuang to leave the roof under Sophia's worried eyes. Half a minute later, Lu Chuang and John hid in a corner outside the factory. They're scouting the area, and this is our chance. Lu Chuang observed the convoy in the distance, and said in a low voice, "Let's first kill the enemies on the periphery secretly, replenish enough firepower, and then use grenades to penetrate into the enemy's interior. When the enemy can't see us, let's fight together. How about sneaking into the truck and getting Clarice out?" John's expression was a little uncomfortable, and he was making a surprise firepower attack, which was the same as sneaking. John didn't want to follow Lu Chuang into Tianya. He put forward his own suggestion, "I think it's better for us to keep a low profile. Later, I will find a way to sneak attack the Sentry Secret Service agents on the periphery, and let you pretend to be the other party and sneak into them, and then you take a chance to rescue Clarice." "You're right, so let's do what you say." Lu Chuang nodded. He thought he was low-key and agreed to John's plan. Soon, they found a suitable target. John approached the back of the Sentry Secret Service agent very skillfully, stepped forward and directly stunned him with a grab lock, and then quickly dragged him to the back to avoid being noticed by others. John fumbled on the stunned agent, took off the other's credentials and equipment and handed them to Lu Chuang. "The rest will be left to you. I will meet you on the outskirts. Be careful. If it doesn't work, come back quickly. We can think of other ways. Don't worry about my work." Lu Chuang took the documents and equipment, used camouflage to transform into the agent's appearance, and then walked to the convoy openly. After walking a few steps, Lu Chuang was suddenly stopped by an agent. "How's it going?" Lu Chuang realized in an instant that the tone of this inquiry was probably from his own superior. With a judgment in mind, Lu Chuang replied seriously, "No problem, sir." The detective was stunned for a moment, and asked in confusion, "What's wrong with your voice? It sounds different from before." Lu Chuang was not good at secretly, and John strangled his disguised agent directly, so he never heard the voice of the disguised identity, so naturally there was no way to imitate the voice of the disguised identity. Lu Chuang thought for a while. "I'm in the voice-changing period, sir." "Agent, what a voice-changing period? You are too late to grow up." Seeing the detective's expression of disbelief, Lu Chuang directly punched the detective's chin with his dragon fist without saying a word, and the detective was hit in the nose by Lu Chuang without any defense. John hid in the dark and witnessed the whole process. He came out and asked in a low voice, "What's going on?" Lu Chuang said helplessly, "My voice has been exposed, so I can only knock him unconscious." John nodded. After all, there was no other way. Immediately afterwards, Lu Chuang took off the agent's credentials and equipment, and transformed into the agent's appearance. Reading John's questioning gaze, Lu Chuang explained, "This guy should be at the level of a small captain. I will upgrade my identity to facilitate the next action." John felt that what Lu Chuang said made sense, so he dragged the detective's body to the dark place. He did not forget that his task was to assist Lu Chuang in disguising, and he needed to cover Lu Chuang's identity from being exposed. Lu Chuang, who was promoted to team leader, adjusted his attire, raised his head and chest, and continued to approach the team's position, promised. When Lu Chuang walked a distance, he saw an agent dressed as a Sentry Secret Service passing by. The eyes of the two met for an instant. Lu Chuang took his time and put on the gesture that a small team leader should have, pulled the agent over, and asked in a disguised voice, "How is the situation?" Unexpectedly, the other party's complexion suddenly became gloomy. "I am your superior, please pay attention to your attitude." Lu Chuang. Sighing, Lu Chuang hit the opponent's chin with a rising dragon fist. Taking advantage of the fact that the other agents didn't notice the situation here, Lu Chuang immediately dragged the other agent back and found John Yang, who was hiding in the corner with a dazed expression on his face. "I'm exposed, understand?" Lu Chuang said concisely. John. Lu Chuang skillfully removed the documents and equipment, used camouflage to replace with a new image, and then threw the unconscious agent to John for disposal. Although his disguise was exposed twice, Lu Chuang felt that the stealth was still very successful. At least he has been promoted to 2 ranks in such a short period of time. If this trend continues, maybe he can be promoted all the way to become a member of the Sentry Secret Service boss. Regardless of John's melancholy expression, Lu Chuang walked towards the escort convoy with a gun in his hand. This time there was no accident at all. Lu Chuang sneaked into the convoy smoothly. Even if the agents of Sentry Secret Service noticed Lu Chuang, they couldn't see through Lu Chuang's disguise, so Lu Chuang went to the escort without hindrance the front of the truck. At the moment a Sentry Secret Service agent was repairing the truck, Lu Chuang leaned over and asked, "How's the repair going?" The detective looked up and saw Lu Chuang, and he didn't have any doubts, and reported honestly, "Report, sir, the damage to the truck is relatively light, and it will take about 5 minutes to repair it." "Very well, when the maintenance is over, please notify me immediately." "Clear." At this moment, Lu Chuang saw the bald-headed Agent Turner approaching. "Bob, what's the search result on your side?" Lu Chuang had seen the disguised identity documents, and knew that Agent Turner was calling him. With the idea of making too many mistakes, Lu Chuang said briefly, "There is nothing unusual." Agent Turner looked serious. "Don't let your guard down. The target of those mutants must be the mutant criminal, it should be her companion." "You're right." Lu Chuang nodded and echoed Agent Turner, speaking no more than 5 words. "Besides, we still have hound weapons. Those mutants have no way to use their abilities. We can take this opportunity to arrest them all." Agent Turner did not hide anything, and revealed his thoughts to Lu Chuang. Hound weapons. Intuition told Lu Chuang that the hound weapon mentioned by Agent Turner was likely to be related to John's companion Pulse, but because of his disguised identity, Lu Chuang couldn't ask directly, so he continued to nod in agreement. "You're right." Then Agent Turner said a few words, and Lu Chuang echoed them briefly. Suddenly, Agent Turner received a message from a communicator. "Sir, 4 suspicious people have been found here. They are fleeing. Do you want to take necessary measures?" Agent Turner grabbed the communicator and hurriedly said, "Not for now, make sure not to let them escape, wait for me to pass." After hearing a location reported by the communicator, Agent Turner immediately looked at Lu Chuang. "There is a situation, a team has discovered the whereabouts of those mutants, now I will go over and have a look. Bob, you stay here to watch, be careful of that mutant criminals have other companions." 4 suspicious people, it should be Lorna, they were found. Thinking of this in his heart, Lu Chuang nodded earnestly without showing any emotion. "Leave it to me, you can go at ease." Agent Turner. "Capture mutant." Lu Chuang continued the following words, still speaking within 5 words. "This panting is to scare Deadman." Due to the urgency of time, Agent Turner didn't pay attention to this detail, recruited several agents to form a temporary team, and then left impatiently. After Agent Turner left, Lu Chuang pushed open the car door and walked in without hesitation. He also knew that time was running out, and if time wasted, Lorna and the others might be in danger. Inside the carriage, Lu Chuang saw 2 Sentry Secret Service agents guarding it. Behind them, B-Day, is an Asian girl in a prison uniform, with green pupils, pointed ears, and tattoo-like marks on her face. Her appearance is obviously different from ordinary people, but fortunately her good-looking, looks a bit like an elf in film and television works, thus avoiding the possibility of being arrested because of being too ugly. What attracts attention is the collar with blue light on her neck and the shackles on her hands and feet. Those who don't know it think they are playing some kind of prison play here. Open black lens bracket target meets the conditions close black lens bracket. Needless to say, the Asian girl in front of her is none other than Clarice, also known as Blink. They also noticed Lu Chuang's arrival. After seeing Lu Chuang's disguised image, a Sentry Secret Service agent asked, "Sir, what's the matter?" "Something's wrong. My contact lens is missing and I dropped it here, please help me find it." Hearing Lu Chuang's words, the 2 Sentry Secret Service agents subconsciously looked down, and then heard the tearing air sounds of fists coming, and the 2 fell directly to the ground. Clarice watched this scene in surprise. "You?" Lu Chuang didn't answer, and sat directly in the driver's seat. At the same time, an agent's voice came from outside the car. "Sir, the car has been repaired. Since the escort truck is closed, the inside of the compartment cannot be seen from the outside." Following Lu Chuang's orders, the agent notified Lu Chuang immediately after repairing the car. "Good job." Hearing this, Lu Chuang reached out and touched the keyhole in front. Without the need for a car key, Lu Chuang started the truck easily, and then stepped on the accelerator suddenly. There was a sound of tires rubbing against the ground. Before the detectives who had just repaired the truck could react, they were sprayed with exhaust fumes from the truck that started. Before the car door was closed, the detective heard a faint sentence from inside the car. It is impossible to work part-time, and it is impossible to work part-time in this life. The dark-faced detective froze for a while before he could react. Looks like their escort truck was stolen. The next second, the agent shouted, "No, Chief Bob ran away with the mutant criminal." And Clarice in the car thought, "No, I was kidnapped by the chief of the Sentry Secret Service." Chapter 131. Lu Chuang drove the truck and rammed it all the way. Relying on the huge tonnage of the truck, he slammed away the car in front of him. Definitely, he didn't have the head iron to touch the front armored vehicle, and directly bypassed and rushed towards the direction of the factory. Feeling the movement of the truck, Clarice couldn't help asking, "Who are you, and where are you taking me?" Seeing Lu Chuang, a man suspected to be the chief of the Sentry Secret Service, suddenly shot down 2 Sentry Secret Service agents, Clarice couldn't help feeling a little flustered. She felt as if she was involved in a Sentry Secret Service during the Civil War. Thinking about it this way, maybe Lu Chuang is planning to kidnap her as a witness to silence her. Clarice really wanted to escape, but she couldn't do anything now. Her hands and feet were shackled tightly, and her body was fixed on the seat of the car by belts. Even if she wanted to stand up, she couldn't do it. "You'll find out soon enough." Lu Chuang didn't explain, stepped on the accelerator to increase the speed of the truck. As the speed got faster and faster, Clarice said a little timidly, "Can you drive slowly? You are too fast." "Hey, you can say I'm stable, but you can't say I'm fast." Lu Chuang turned his head to look at Clarice, a little dissatisfied, completely ignoring the road ahead. Clarice's eyes widened. "Front, look ahead. Turn your back. Don't get excited, I'm an old driver, very stable." Lu Chuang slammed the steering wheel, and the truck, which had just picked up speed, drifted into the corner and turned into the corner with an incredible arc. With strong inertia, 2 Sentry Secret Service agents who were comatose flew straight up from the ground. Heavily it hit the wall of the carriage, but they still didn't wake up. Clarice was protected by a belt and was not affected by inertia, but she was also taken aback. "Who can help me? I want to get off." Before Clarice could speak, Lu Chuang stopped the truck and opened the door, only to see John standing outside dumbfounded. Originally, John was hiding well in the dark, but unexpectedly a truck suddenly appeared around the corner and rushed towards him with ease. John just wanted to avoid it when he saw the truck stop in front of him. Lu Chuang shouted to John, "It's too late to explain, get in the car." Dressed in the Sentry Secret Service, John almost didn't realize that the other party was Lu Chuang. Hearing Lu Chuang's words, John got into the car with almost no hesitation. "John." Clarice couldn't believe it. Seeing Clarice, John knew that Lu Chuang's rescue had succeeded, and said to Clarice in a deep voice, "We're here to rescue you." Clarice was slightly taken aback, looking at Lu Chuang's back. "Is he also one of us?" "Yes." John nodded and walked towards Clarice. "Don't move, I'll untie you." Seeing Lu Chuang's hands touching the steering wheel again, Clarice swallowed her saliva and shook her head vigorously. "No, I'm fine like this." John was stunned. "Is this an addiction or what do you think?" It's just that Lu Chuang didn't give them time to talk, and interrupted, "Please fasten your seat belts, I'm going to speed up next." "I have a request, can I get out of the car first?" Clarice begged. She really didn't want to ride in Lu Chuang's car, it was too exciting, and her heart couldn't stand it. "Cannot." Lu Chuang resolutely refused, and directly stepped on the accelerator. On the other side, in an abandoned building not far from the factory. What to do? We're surrounded by Sentry Secret Service. Through some gaps in the building, Marcos observed that the perimeter of the building was full of agents from the Sentry Secret Service, with cold sweat on his forehead, and finally gritted his teeth and said, "If it is really impossible, we break out directly." Quote, "No, our ability can't be used now, going out will only be a sacrifice in vain." Sophia stopped Max's act of death. Mutants without abilities are equivalent to ordinary people, and they don't even have weapons, so why should they fight against the heavily armed Sentry Secret Service agents? "However, we are also waiting to die here." Marcus heard the sound and looked around, but found that he didn't see the person who spoke, and said in surprise, "Jason, has your invisibility ability recovered?" "No." A row of white teeth emerged in the darkness. The invisible black Jason looked at Max resentfully. To avoid being chased by the Sentry Secret Service, they chose to hide in this dark building. The Black Jason's blood is very pure, and it blends in perfectly with its surroundings. Seeing that Jason's ability has not recovered, Marcos is very disappointed. The situation in front of them is not good for them. Maybe they will all be wiped out here. Lorna remained silent in the corner, with a green light flashing from both hands, but it didn't last for a second. Lorna is trying to control the metal, and the pulse ability can indeed interfere with the abilities of other mutants, but Lorna finds that her ability is not completely disturbed like others, and she can still sense the existence of her own ability. However, Lorna's repeated attempts all failed. If Lorna is given a little more time, maybe she can gradually adapt to the interference of the pulse ability. However, the Sentry Secret Service outside would not give Lorna time at all. Agent Turner, who had just arrived, took a loudspeaker and shouted towards the abandoned building where they were. "You are already surrounded, don't make unnecessary struggles, give up resistance and surrender immediately, otherwise we will take necessary measures." Detective Turner's proclamation added another layer of calendar to everyone in the Invisible. "You should be aware of the consequences of being caught by them. I would rather die here. I'm going to die anyway. It's better to fight them directly," Marcos said in a low voice. Others also knew that after being arrested by the Sentry Secret Service, what result will be ushered in. There is no rebuttal to Max's words. Only Lorna has been trying to adapt to the interference of pulse ability. She thought anxiously in her heart, hurry up, hurry up. After waiting for a while, but still not hearing any response from those mutants, Agent Turner's eyes flashed a cold light, and he gestured towards other Sentry Secret Service agents, and several agents slowly approached the abandoned building with guns in hand. The few people hiding in the abandoned building could hear footsteps coming from outside. Car. Just when they were feeling desperate, they heard a screeching sound of tire friction resounding throughout the street. Not only the mutant in the abandoned building heard it, but also the agents of the Sentry Secret Service. Looking in the direction of the sound, they saw a truck rushing towards them like a mad cow, without any intention of slowing down at all. They couldn't help them to think too much, so they quickly dodged to the side to avoid the collision of the truck. When Agent Turner saw the truck, he suddenly felt bad. That's the truck that transports mutant criminals, why is it here? When the truck passed the detectives, the door suddenly opened, and several smoke bombs were thrown from inside, and the rising smoke obscured their view. However, the few people inside the abandoned building could see that the truck suddenly flicked to a stop in front of the abandoned building. The door was opening facing them, and John was actually inside the car. John staggered down from the car door and shouted to Lorna and the others, "Come up." 437, "It's John," Sophia said pleasantly. Seeing John's appearance, the people who were in despair were instantly excited. Marcos shouted, "John is here to save us, let's go." Lorna gave up trying decisively when she heard that, and followed the crowd out of the abandoned building. Under the cover of smoke, several people quickly ran into the truck. John held the door to greet the crowd. Sophia noticed that John was in a bad state, and said worriedly, "John, what's wrong with you, are you hurt?" "I'm fine, just a little dizzy." John didn't have time to explain, so he led them into the car, and then others saw Lu Chuang sitting in the driver's seat, and Clarice tied up in the car seat. The two service agents had already been caught by Lu Chuang dropped. Clarice. Members of the mutant underground are beaming. When Clarice saw her companions, her pale face also showed a gleam of joy. Knowing that they were all here to save her, Clarice was quite touched and said weakly, "Sorry, it's me, let you take such a risk." Seeing Clarice's appearance, Sophia obviously misunderstood, and said distressed-edly, "The Sentry Secret Service must have treated you very badly. It's all right, we are all here to save you, come, I will untie you." "No, don't, I think it's fine." Clarice shook her head quickly. As long as Lu Chuang didn't leave the driver's seat, she would not let go of the belt no matter what. Lorna felt that she was a bit out of place with that side, and approached Lu Chuang subconsciously. Lu Chuang didn't remove the disguise, but Lorna knew that the other party was Lu Chuang. When Lorna found that Lu Chuang didn't start the truck immediately, Lorna couldn't help but reminded, "Get out of here, there are people outside." "It's someone from the Sentry Secret Service." "Not in a hurry." Lu Chuang looked down for the radio button, but couldn't find it. So he took out his mobile phone, turned on the music player and clicked on a piece of explosive music. Under the dynamic rhythm, Lu Chuang's blood boiled. He turned his head and said to everyone in the car, "I will break through next, so the speed will be a little faster, remember to hurry up." Hearing this, the expressions of Clarice and John became stiff instantly. John couldn't help but make his own suggestion, "Actually, you can drive slower." But before he could speak, he was interrupted by Marcus. "Say something stupid, definitely the sooner the better. If we are blocked by those bastards from the Sentry Secret Service, we will be in trouble." "The sooner the better. I understand." Lu Chuang showed unprecedented seriousness on his face, and exuded a palpitating sense of oppression all over his body. Even Marcus felt something was wrong. He seemed to release a monster. The moment Lu Chuang held the steering wheel, everyone in the car could feel a terrifying aura that belonged to the strongest in the field, which originated from the survival instinct of creatures, driving them to grab the supports around them. With a sad face, Clarice opened her mouth to request to get out of the car, but the door was closed tightly by Lu Chuang in the next second. "Mom, I want to get out of the car." At the moment when the smoke was about to dissipate, Lu Chuang's eyes burst out. He stepped on the gas pedal suddenly, and the truck rushed out of the smoke and snow. Seeing this, Agent Turner yelled, "Get in the car and chase after him." Obeying the order, all the agents of the Sentry Secret Service got into the car respectively, stepped on the accelerator and chased towards the truck. Lu Chuang glanced at the rearview mirror and found several Sentry Secret Service cars hanging behind him. His face remained calm. "They are coming after you, sit still and hold on, I'm going to speed up." Marcus looked at the buildings passing by the car quickly, a little dry-mouthed. "Dude, I suddenly feel that what John said is right, you can drive more slowly. How did you become so fast? Didn't you say that the sooner the better?" "But this is too fast." Marcus wanted to cry but had no tears. He felt that the car was about to float. "Don't worry, I've never had an accident while driving." While driving, Lu Chuang freed up one hand and gave a thumbs up, posing a good pose to Marcos. "Marcus, at this speed, if there is an accident, he will die on the spot, so there is no chance for the next time." At this moment, Max widened his eyes, pointed to the front and said, look ahead, Shet, it's time to turn." Seeing the building less than 10 meters away, everyone was frightened crazy. Screams and howls sounded one after another. Even Agent Turner, who was sitting in the passenger seat of a car behind, was surprised. At such a short distance, it is impossible for a truck at this speed to turn. Is the driver looking for death? Seeing that it was a tragedy of a car crash, he saw the truck in front of him suddenly flicking its tail strangely. Under the action of centrifugal force, the whole body drifted laterally and flung into the corner without even touching the side of the car. Fast and furious, Agent Turner's eyes widened. He had seen this scene before, it was in the movie. Seeing this, Agent Turner yelled, "Drift and overtake, stop them in front." Agent in the driver's seat. "Police officer, maybe you were embarrassing for money." Although the truck turned successfully, the speed still did not slow down. Lu Chuang has a super high school stuntman, but he can easily make all kinds of difficult degree movements in any means of transportation, even if he is given a baby carriage. Soar on the road. As the speed got faster and faster, the faces of everyone in the truck became paler. Even Lorna, who maintained a cold attitude, couldn't stand it any longer. She hugged the driver's seat tightly, and the last trace of stubbornness in her heart prevented her from shouting. At the moment they finally understood why John and Clarice were in that half-dead state at the beginning, especially Clarice, who had experienced it twice, and now it was the third time, feeling that her soul had been taken away. Only the instinctive scream of the body remained. But they have no chance to regret it. The door has been closed tightly, and it is difficult for them to get out of the car. Although they don't know where Lu Chuang's limit is, they already know where their own limit is. "No, I want to throw up. Who can help me? Catch shrimp. A Tong dies of illness. Talk about Beverly." Accompanied by the explosive music, a truck sprang out from the left side of the expressway like a ghost, with the front of the truck as the center of the circle. Under the action of inertia, it drew a perfect arc, and drifted to the expressway close to the isolation zone of the curve superior. Amidst a burst of panic honking, the truck narrowly passed the speeding vehicles. At the moment, everyone in the car was in disarray. Lorna, ignoring her aggressiveness, hugged Lu Chuang's driver's seat like an octopus. Sophia and Clarice hugged each other tightly, mouth there were screams from time to time. As for the other three men, they grabbed the supports around them and refused to let go. As the truck was driving on the highway, Marcos felt that the car had finally stabilized, and shouted in shock, "God, I didn't die, it's finally over." Who knows what they went through just now? Marcos felt that the truck underneath was about to fly up, and if he was not careful, the car would crash and people would die. During the process, he seemed to see his long-dead grandma waving at him from the other side. No, it's not over yet. Lu Chuang operated the steering wheel with one hand, glanced at the rearview mirror, and found that the car of the Sentry Secret Service was still hanging at the rear, and raised his eyebrows. He was sure that he had just thrown off these pursuers. Logically speaking, they should not might catch up so quickly. Soon, Lu Chuang thought of the reason. There are trackers in the car, it looks like we're being targeted by Sentry Secret Service. Hearing his words, the expressions of the crowd 13 changed dramatically. John is more experienced in this regard. We must abandon this car, otherwise the Sentry Secret Service will be able to track and locate us all the time, and the reinforcements behind are likely to block every fork. Surround us completely. Lu Chuang thought for a while and asked, "Has your ability recovered?" "No, the impulse ability effect is still there." John shook his head, and at the same time was very puzzled. "It's very strange, the impulse ability range is only 2 blocks, why can he always affect us?" At this time, Clarice suddenly said, "I have seen Pulse, it is he who uses ability to affect me, so that I cannot escape with ability. His ability seems to be enhanced, and it has an effect within a range of at least 1 kilometer, so I will be captured by Sentry Secret Service." A kilometer. Lu Chuang looked at the rearview mirror again. Obviously, the pulse is hidden in a certain car, so that it can constantly affect Lorna and their mutant ability. Once you find your target, you'll be fine. Under the horrified eyes of everyone in the car, Lu Chuang exposed half of his body from the driver's window, and a pistol suddenly appeared in Tianzhong. Bang, bang, 2 bullets were thrown out of the chamber, and in slow motion, the bullets arced and shuttled between the vehicles, and finally landed precisely on the tires of 2 Sentry Secret Service vehicles. The tire burst directly, and the car crashed into the isolation belt uncontrollably. Looking at the blurred figure in the distance, Agent Turner was startled. "The other party has a gun, be careful to dodge." Hearing this, Tianjin's agents were full of confidence. "Although he can't drift, can you avoid him?" So he controlled the car to move sideways and drive in an S shape, which he learned from movies. However, he was too confident in his driving skills. The car suddenly skidded and crashed into a car beside him. The car lost its balance and hit the isolation belt on the left. The airbag popped up instantly to prevent the people in the car from being affected by inertia harm. Lu Chuang, what is this operation? Lu Chuang shook his head and retreated into the car, grasping the steering wheel with both hands. The tragic example made him deeply aware that the driving was irregular and his relatives cried. Agent Turner covered his dizzy head, and quickly turned his head to look behind him. He saw a man sitting in the rear compartment with his eyes bulging. This person is Pulse, the secret weapon of the Sentry Secret Service, which specifically restrains mutants' ability. But they stay here, as long as they leave enough range, those mutants can regain their abilities. Damn it. Seeing the truck getting farther and farther away from them, Agent Turner cursed angrily. Before he could breathe a sigh of relief, he heard another bad news from the communicator. "Sir, we found Officer Bob and 2 agents. They have come to life. According to them, there is a person pretending to be assaulted them as someone else." Ability in disguise. Agent Turner's expression became gloomy. That Bob was indeed a fake. But he can't figure it out. There is a Pulse, why can that guy use ability to infiltrate their ministers? My ability is restored. When the truck traveled a certain distance, Lorna immediately sensed that her ability could be used. Immediately afterwards, other mutants also recovered their abilities one after another. Only Clarice's ability still hasn't recovered. She pointed helplessly at the collar around her neck. This is the latest flea collar developed by the Sentry Secret Service, only they know how to open it. If you open it in the wrong way, this collar will send out strong electric current. Let me try. Regaining his strength, John stepped forward, grabbed the flea collar and tried to force it off. However, John, who can tear apart steel with his bare hands, can't hurt the flea collar at all. and he doesn't know what material it is made of, it's simply too hard. This thing is not made of metal. Lorna felt it and shook her head to express that she had no choice. At the same time, Lorna finally experienced for herself how many ways the Sentry Secret Service has to deal with their mutants. Even the Sentinel has not seen it. She has tried twice and failed, and she even almost fell into the hands of the Sentry Secret Service, inside. Just when everyone felt helpless, the truck stopped at some point. "Get out of the way, let me try." Lu Chuang came over from the driver's seat, pushed away Marcus who was in the way, walked up to Clarice and reached out to touch the flea collar. The flea collar opened with a click, and then fell to the ground. "How did you do that?" Lorna was amazed. "It's easy, just touch it." Lu Chuang replied casually. He glanced at the game system and found that the task had not been completed yet. Then Lu Chuang tore off the belt with brute force, looked at the stunned Clarice, and urged, "Try your ability, take us out of here." Clarice reacted and nodded quickly. "Oh." Clarice stood up, stretched out her hands, and condensed a purple light curtain with concentration. Everyone could see another place behind the purple light curtain. As Clarice stretched out her hands, the purple light curtain became bigger and bigger, and finally formed a passage that could accommodate an adult file size. "Go in, I won't last long," Clarice said with difficulty. "Let's go." John was the first to bend down and walk into the purple light curtain. He had no choice but to bend down to get in because he was too tall. His companions followed close behind. Lorna didn't act immediately, but looked at Lu Chuang. Lu Chuang nodded. "Let's go in too." Hearing that, Lorna jumped in without hesitation, and just as Lu Chuang was about to go in, the voice of Agent Turner suddenly came from the communicator in his hand. "Why do you know how to open it?" Agent Turner apparently knew that Clarice's flea collar had been opened. Lu Chuang turned on the communication function and said in Bob's voice, "I'm sorry, I'm an undercover agent." "Agent Turner, I remember you. Sooner or later, I will catch you with my own hands." There was anger in Agent Turner's words. He knew what it meant when Clarice's flea collar was opened, and their roundup operation was declared a failure. "And this is all the damn guy Lu Chuang. Remember me?" Lu Chuang asked in surprise. "Then do you know who I am?" Agent Turner choked suddenly. He really didn't know this. Not to mention Lu Chuang's real appearance and name, even his voice is fake, how could he know? After a few seconds of silence, Agent Na finally choked out one sentence, "I will investigate." Lu Chuang ignored the other party, threw away the communicator, and bent over to step into the purple light curtain. Although he was tall enough to pass through, bending over was necessary so that he could appear tall enough. When everyone went in, Clarice quickly jumped into the purple light curtain. Without Clarice's maintenance, the purple light curtain quickly disappeared in place, as if it had never appeared before. Boom! A few seconds later, the bomb hidden under the driver's seat suddenly exploded. The entire truck was reduced to a heap of scrap metal, which was removed along with all traces. Lu Chuang didn't care about Agent Turner's harsh words at all. After all, he is not a real mutant. The Sentry Secret Service has almost no threat to him. Besides, he even dared to provoke S.H.I.E.L.D., a global terrorist organization, so why would he care? You a little special department. S.H.I.E.L.D. is equal to Snake and S.H.I.E.L.D., so there is nothing wrong with saying that S.H.I.E.L.D. is a global terrorist organization. Stepping through the purple light curtain, Lu Chuang found himself in a dilapidated abandoned building. Open black lens bracket jailbreak, completed close black lens bracket. Unlock condition. Rescue Clarice Ferguson, a member of the Mutant Underground Organization 1/1. Title: Super High School Architect. Open black lens bracket. Whether to unlock the title, close black lens bracket. The moment Clarice followed, the game system popped up a prompt as if pinpointing the timing. Seeing the prompt of the game system, Lu Chuang knew that they had successfully escaped the pursuit and surveillance of Sentry's Secret Service. Unlock. Open black lens bracket. Unlock successfully. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Title: Super High School Level Architect. Close black lens bracket. Explanation: someone is an architect on the surface, but actually has a prison design drawing tattooed on his back. Open black lens bracket. Characteristics: rapid construction. Close black lens bracket. It's really a jailbreak. When Lu Chuang saw the description of the title, he couldn't help complaining in his heart. Then, He clicked on the properties of the title. Quick construction. Significantly shortened the time required for construction. Nice one. Lu Chuang's eyes lit up, and the blood of an infrastructure madman flowed in his body, and he liked this feature very much. After getting a super university-level architect, Lu Chuang's vision became completely different. According to the treasury gate not far away, he can tell that this is a long-abandoned bank. There are 3 floors in the building, 2 floors on the top and 2 floors on the top, and an underground layer at the bottom. However, this place seems to have suffered some kind of large-scale damage. The second floor and the center of the first floor were opened by a huge amount of hole, and the structure of the entire building was damaged to some extent. Fortunately, this building is not a tofu project, and there will be no safety issues such as collapse for the time being. Lu Chuang could see many figures walking around on the 2 floors, both men, women and children. Most of them were no different from humans, only a few had obvious non-human features. Apparently, they're all mutants. Jason, tell 2 we're back. John said something to the invisible black man, and then introduced to Lu Chuang and Lorna, this is our headquarters. Are they, and those children, all members of your organization? Lorna looked at the mutants outside. She hadn't seen so many mutants gathered in one place since the Mutant Act was enacted. John shook his head. No, there are only a small number of our members. They are mainly responsible for the management and security here. As for the others, they are actually some poor people who have been persecuted by the Mutant Act and have nowhere to go. We temporarily took them in. Avoid them being found by the Sentry Secret Service. Temporarily. What does that mean? Lorna frowned. John explained helplessly. As you have seen in our place, we have no extra space to accommodate other people. Except for those who are willing to join our organization, we can only let them live here for a period of time, and then we will arrange for them to go to other places. Branch. Lorna glanced at her surroundings. As John said, the only space left here is the passing road, and the rest of the space has been cleaned up and many beds are placed. It can be seen that this is to accommodate as many people as possible. Therefore, everyone is crowded in the same space, and daily life is obviously inconvenient. Seeing their current situation, Lorna suddenly felt much happier. At least she has food and drink in Lu Chuang's house, and she has her own private space, except that she has to be Peter's assistant and can't leave the house casually for fear of being discovered by the Sentry Secret Service. Basically, it is not much different from the previous life. Marcos, who is Mexican, added, if someone wants to live elsewhere, we can also help them smuggle to my hometown of Mexico, which is one of the few countries that allows mutant to exist. At least there is no oppression of the Mutant Act. Hearing this, Lu Chuang called him a good guy. In the past, he heard that many Mexicans tried various methods to smuggle into America, and even a certain president did not hesitate to spend tens of billions to build a border wall to prevent Mexicans from smuggling into America. God is a good reincarnation, and now it is the turn of the Americans to try to smuggle into Mexico. However, these are not what Lu Chuang should care about. Lu Chuang narrowed his eyes slightly, and said to John, since your companion has been rescued, is our reward. Ahem. John suddenly coughed a few times, facing Sophia and the others' puzzled gazes. He ordered in a commanding manner, Sophia, show Miss Dan a tour of our headquarters, and take Clarice to check her physical condition. As for Marcus, you go check the toilet to see if it's smooth. Cuz. Lin. Horse. None of the people present were fools. It could be seen that John was obviously trying to find a way to get them. However, out of trust in John, the companions left without asking any further questions. As one of the insiders, Lorna knew what Lu Chuang said about the reward, and she was not very interested in it. In addition, she was indeed somewhat curious about this place, so she followed Sophia to visit the Mutant Underground organization. After everyone left, John looked at Lu Chuang. Lu, can you change back? This image is not very convenient to appear here. At the moment Lu Chuang still maintains the disguise of the Sentry Secret Service. If the mutants outside see the Sentry Secret Service agents, it will definitely cause a lot of trouble, just like black people seeing white police officers. Lu Chuang nodded to express his understanding, and immediately cancelled his camouflage technique. Quote. Putting aside other things, you first make up an IOU for me. What should come will come eventually. John nodded with difficulty. I'll get the paper and pen. No, I have it here. Lu Chuang took out a document and pen from himself. Seeing the dense English on the paper, there is a professional atmosphere between each line and each page. Obviously it was written by a professional lawyer. The corner of John's mouth couldn't help twitching. You were really well prepared. Now that Lu Chuang has helped them rescue Clarice, John naturally has no reason to refuse. He simply looked at the content of the document and signed his name at the end. His gesture seemed to be full of trust in Lu Chuang, definitely not because his culture does not understand the above content. After receiving the documents, Lu Chuang nodded with satisfaction. As expected of the leader of the mutant underground organization, the X-Men did not misunderstand you, and silently repaid the debt. So, when do you plan to pay back the money? Now I don't have so much money. John said bitterly, a whole 1 million USD, Qian Lihao, how could he have so much money? Oh, no money. Lu Chuang nodded thoughtfully, and snapped his fingers. Since this is the case, I have a suggestion. As long as you do something for me, how about getting rid of this debt slowly? John was taken aback. What's the matter? It's nothing. Help me contact that Ivan, I have something to ask her. John frowned immediately. I'm sorry, I promised Ivan not to disclose her information to others. Lu Chuang looked skeptical. Don't lie to me, your mouth was not as dense as this, and I heard you mention Ivan with my own ears. That's because you overheard. Lu Chuang ignored John's rebuttal, and looked at John with bad eyes. You really disagree with Jia? John shook his head. I can't reveal. Seeing John's firmness, Lu Chuang smiled like a villain, and said viciously, in this case, I will arrange for you to go to the elephant country, and you can make my debut as an idol to pay off my debts. John, under Lu Chuang's coercion and lure, finally John could only bite the bullet and said, I can contact Ivan for you, but let me make it clear first that if Ivan is unwilling to meet you, there is nothing I can do. Seeing that John agreed, Lu Chuang changed his face instantly, and said cheerfully, that's right, you have to learn to be flexible, and you can't be too honest. Back then, I was bullied for being too honest. A boss deducted my salary. If it wasn't for I cleverly grabbed his assistant and asked him to give me money, and my hard-earned money was gone long ago. John, this is really kidnapping. Lu Chuang shook his head with emotion. How young and honest he was at that time. Anyway, you just need to help me contact that woman named Ivan. Then you have to tell me, what is your business with Ivan, so that I can ask Ivan. For some reason, John feels that Lu Chuang seems to have deliberately dug a hole for him to jump into. The most uncomfortable thing is that he jumped into the hole on his own initiative, and it is too late to jump out now. Lu Chuang felt that there was no need to hide this kind of matter, and said bluntly, it's nothing, I just have some questions I want to ask her, about X-Men. John looked surprised. You also believe that the X-Men are real? Since the Chinese people exist, the X-Men may also exist. There may be a bald man in a wheelchair staring at you from a corner of the world. He can see clearly even if you are not taking a shower. Lu Chuang he was joking, but suddenly felt a little apprehensive in his heart. If the X-Men existed, the mutant known as the strongest telepathy ability on Earth, Professor X, the leader of the X-Men, might really exist. Thinking of Professor X's terrifying telepathy ability, Lu Chuang swallowed involuntarily. That old yin, cough cough, that boss is not really watching them, is he? Seems like it might be possible. After all, John said the mutant underground was part of the X-Men project. Maybe that old cutie is somewhere in the world watching what's going on here. Lu, you're joking again. John couldn't understand Lu Chuang's words, but he didn't know much, let alone who Lu Chuang was talking about with the bald head. Hee. Lu Chuang smiled awkwardly, and skipped the topic decisively. That's the deal, help me contact Ivan as soon as possible. After the matter is completed, your debt will be offset by 100,000 BDAB USD, and I will give you another 50,000 in private USD as treated as a donation to your mutant underground organization. Hearing Lu Chuang's words, John's heart trembled. He struggled for a few seconds, and finally his eyes were full of firmness. Okay, leave this matter to me at ease. John decided that he had to persuade Ivan well. As more and more mutants are taken in by the organization, now John can't wait to split a steel shop into two. 50,000 USD is a huge sum of money for him, and it can also offset part of the debt. John really there is no reason to refuse. After talking about things, John proposed to show Lu Chuang a tour of their mutant underground organization. Anyway, having nothing to do, Lu Chuang followed John around the dangerous building, but he made some disguises, changing the image of a passerby, so as to avoid exposing his true appearance to too many people's eyes. During the tour, John introduced some members of their organization to Lu Chuang. After this rescue operation, John already trusts Lu Chuang and Lorna, and agrees with their ability even more. John very much hopes that they can join their mutant underground organization. Taking this opportunity, John wants to pull into the relationship with each other. Lu Chuang could see that John had completely regarded himself as a mutant, but he didn't explain it either. After all, the identity of a mutant is more convenient for him to get in touch with the truth of the X-Men, so let's just misunderstand. I have to say that mutants' abilities are really diverse. Throughout the mutant underground organization, several mutant abilities aroused Lu Chuang's interest. Among them, the most eye-catching is the mutant code named Sage, who has the ability of unlimited storage capacity similar to a computer, and can record and analyze a large amount of data to judge the probability of an event. She is a computer analyst of the mutant underground organization, responsible for monitoring network communications. The reason why they can clearly know the movements of Sentry Secret Service is that Sage is always monitoring the network communication of Sentry Secret Service behind the scenes. And John got Lorna's contact information because of Sage's assistance. Proper Intelligence Master. Sage's intelligence ability is much stronger than that of Weasel, at least the source of information is reliable enough, and he doesn't need to find a gangster boy to run all over New York. Through the explanation of the invisible black man, Sage already knew about Lu Chuang, and he was very friendly to Lu Chuang. "Thank you for rescuing our companion." Quote. Lu Chuang responded equally friendly. "It's just a small matter. By the way, are you interested in coming to work with me? I'll give you a monthly salary of 4,000 United States dollars. How about a weekly weekend and working hours of no more than 8 hours? Shenj raised his eyebrows. How can there be such a good treatment? I have to admit, she was really moved. Ahem, Lu, Shenj is a member of our organization. John couldn't help reminding. The person who robbed him in front of him, is this a human thing? Seeing John's protective appearance, Lu Chuang shrugged his shoulders and did not continue. Anyway, John still owes him a sum of money. Although it is John's personal debt, John, as the leader of the Mutant Underground organization, is in the will the rest of the Mutant Underground be able to escape. Besides Sage, there are 2 mutants that Lu Chuang is interested in. It was none other than Sophia and Clarice, whom Lu Chuang already knew, and Lu Chuang was also very interested in their abilities. One can modify the memory of others, and the other can open the portal from a long distance. Although both are auxiliary abilities, they are very useful to Lu Chuang. Ignoring John's black face, Lu Chuang found Sophia and Clarice also sent an invitation. Clarice looked at Lu Chuang in surprise. Your ability is actually shapeshifting. If John and the others hadn't told her personally, Clarice thought Lu Chuang's ability was a racing car, otherwise how could he explain how this guy drove the truck like that? How do you think about it? You come to work here with a daily salary of 4,000 United States dollars. It's a rare opportunity. Lu Chuang bewitched. Lorna next to me. Why can they earn 4,000 United States dollars a day, but I don't have a single USD? In the end, Sophia and Clarice still did not accept Lu Chuang's invitation. The reason is that the Mutant Underground organization needs them. After all, the Mutant Underground organization is currently in a state of serious shortage of manpower, and it is impossible for them to abandon their tasks and go to work with Lu Chuang. Lu Chuang wanted to say a few more words, but was forcibly taken away by the dark-faced John. If this continues, Lu Chuang and Lorna did not join their Mutant Underground organization, but the members of the Mutant Underground organization were poached by Lu Chuang. In fact, John is completely overthinking here. Except for the 3 of Clarice, Lu Chuang basically doesn't like the other members of the Mutant Underground organization. Although some abilities are not bad, the users are so bad that they can't play much role at all. In the final analysis, the Mutant Underground organization is only a non-governmental organization after all, and it is normal for members of the organization to vary in strength. After all, most mutants have not received professional training, and the control over their abilities is definitely far inferior to what Lu Chuang imagined. X-Men. Next, John took Lu Chuang around the perimeter of their base camp. As Lu Chuang imagined, it was originally an abandoned bank building. According to John, a long time ago, a mutant's ability got out of control and destroyed the entire area, causing the surrounding area to become barren, and the big hole in the building was left at that time. Therefore, not many people will go to this area. Even if passers-by pass by unintentionally, they still have mutants that can create fear to scare away intruders. What do you think of our place? John asked. Lu Chuang thought for a while. Do you want to hear the truth or lies? Definitely the truth. If the Sentry Secret Service finds you here, you probably won't last for 2 minutes. The defense measures of the building are too poor, and there are various safety hazards inside the building, especially the hole. Can't you use materials to repair it? Quote. Lu Chuang made a comment from his own professional point of view. It was not enough to say these few things, and then he began to point out all kinds of problems in the base camp, and even the toilet was not spared. John was stunned when he heard it. The point is that John really has no way to refute. Lu Chuang's words are well-founded, and there is an extremely professional feeling in his words. John said without knowing it, "Do you still know architecture?" "Just a little understanding, a little understanding." Lu Chuang was low-key and waved his hands modestly. In this regard, John shook his head and explained, "It's not that we don't want to repair, you know our situation, we can't hire those outside architects, so we can only do it ourselves, but the problem is that we haven't met any professional in this area until now personnel." Lu Chuang smiled slightly. "Didn't you just meet one now?" Don't you mean? That's right, it's next." Lu Chuang stared straight at John, and whispered in his ear as if a demon tempted humans, "I have $1 million renovation plan here, are you interested in learning about it?" Not long after, Lu Chuang looked at the new photos on his phone, nodded in satisfaction, and followed John, who looked numb, back to the base camp. Only they know that in a short period of time, John's net worth doubled directly. However, John, who is a millionaire, kept a low profile. He did not tell his friends the good news. He just announced to everyone that the base camp will undergo a large-scale renovation in the next few days, and Lu Chuang will be fully responsible for organizing it. Members must cooperate with his work. Everyone was amazed at once. Lu Chuang actually has such a profession. Lu Chuang, who was promoted to be a contractor, was very responsible, and decided to go back immediately to draw up a design plan, and asked Clarice to send him and Lorna home, and they would not stay here for dinner. Lorna, so you mean, originally your plan was to wait here and finish your meal before leaving? Hearing that Lu Chuang was leaving, John was very reluctant to keep Lu Chuang, and at the same time told Clarice to send Lu Chuang home as soon as possible. It had no other meaning. He just felt that Lu Chuang was very tired today, and hoped that Lu Chuang going home early to rest is definitely not trying to drive away the other party. With the appearance of the purple light curtain, Lu Chuang and Lorna left the headquarters of the Mutant Underground organization. This ability is really convenient. Seeing the purple light curtain disappearing behind him, Lu Chuang couldn't help sighing. If he had this ability, wandering around the world would be nothing at all. Clarice did not send them directly to the door, but near Queens, Lu Chuang was just about to go home, when Lorna suddenly said, "I ask for a raise." Originally, Lorna didn't feel much, but after hearing how Clarice and the others were treated, Lorna felt a little unbalanced. "Not long after we met, she had such good benefits. She had been working for a while, but she didn't even have weekend benefits. Little Peter had to work overtime when he was on vacation. Isn't this bullying?" No one else was present, and Lorna's aloof appearance collapsed in an instant, and now she almost raised a wooden sign to protest against the unscrupulous boss for oppressing the employees, and ask the boss for a salary increase. Lu Chuang wondered, "It's late at night, what are you daydreaming about?" However, Lorna's attitude is very firm. "If you don't get a raise, I'd rather go to the toilet." Lu Chuang was startled immediately. Is he so wolfish? "Speak up if you have something to say." Lu Chuang hurriedly comforted him. How could he let Lorna run to wash the toilet, and he had to rely on Lorna's ability to make a super battle suit. Since this is the case, you can see that we both have to take a step back. How to return? Lu Chuang pondered for a few seconds. "I won't give you a raise, so don't wash the toilet." Lorna. 9. In the following time, Lu Chuang, an idler, was finally completely busy. In the morning he used his mana to make the elixir, stopped just before the mana was exhausted, and then waited for the mana to recover on its own. During the period, Lu Chuang was not idle, and started to draw up a modification plan for the Mutant Underground organization, and contacted Weasel to prepare all the materials needed, and put them in the rented temporary warehouse Curry. A few days later, the disguised Lu Chuang came to Tony Stark's luxury villa with several boxes of elixir, and said to the door, "Jarvis, tell Mr. Tony that the goods he ordered have been delivered, come out and sign for it." Quote. Soon, the voice of Jarvis sounded, "Dear guest, sir is inside, you can come in." The door opened automatically. Lu Chuang walked into the luxury villa, and saw Tony Stark sitting in the hall. From Lu Chuang's appearance, Tony Stark said in a pleasant surprise, "You came just in time. I've already finished those panacea potions, and the effect is really good. Now I'm waiting for your new products to come to my door." During this period of time, Tony Stark was immersed in developing the latest model of steel armor, and he basically didn't have much time to rest. Both his body and his spirit were always under load. However, when he drank the elixir, his body and spirit would instantly return to their peak state without any feeling of fatigue, which was extremely refreshing for the workaholic Tony Stark. In order to maintain high-intensity work, whenever Tony Stark feels tired, he will choose to drink the elixir directly to restore his strength. Anyway, the price of a bottle of elixir is only 200,000 United States dollars, which is not money at all in Tony Stark's opinion. It is unimaginable that with the help of the panacea, Tony Stark's total sleep time these days is only a mere few hours, and the rest of the time is used to develop steel armor. He can be called a master of time management. It's just that the panacea in Tony Stark's hands is too little, and he can't afford to consume it like him. Now Tony Stark feels uncomfortable if he doesn't drink the panacea for a day. Lu Chuang was also shocked. Tony Stark really drank the elixir like water. Hearing this, Lu Chuang sent several boxes of elixir to Tony Stark. "Here are your 100 bottles of elixir, please count them." Tony Stark couldn't wait to pick up a bottle of elixir and drank it. As all the mineral water was poured into his mouth, the tiredness on Tony Stark's face instantly disappeared. "That's right, that's the taste. Lu Chuang. What does it smell like? Mineral water." After getting the 100 bottles of elixir, Tony Stark readily transferred the final payment to Lu Chuang on the spot. Probably because he was in a good mood, Tony Stark invited Lu Chuang to taste the fine wine in his collection. Faced with Tony Stark's kind invitation, Lu Chuang was very embarrassed, and quickly waved his hands and said that he had something to do. Under Tony Stark's speechless gaze, Lu Chuang left with a few bottles of valuable wine, saying that he would go home and taste it slowly. Mutant Underground Organization Base. On this day, most members of the Mutant Underground organization were busy with activity. I saw a purple light curtain open, and people were constantly carrying various building materials and coming out of it, placing them in the prescribed positions, and then returning to continue carrying materials. Lu Chuang, on the other hand, was sitting outside the abandoned bank with a sun umbrella next to him, a yellow helmet on his head, and a glass of fine wine in his hand. "If you don't move bricks hard, your position will be unstable tomorrow." Everyone gritted their teeth. It was so uncomfortable. They are working hard here to move bricks, and it's fine if this guy doesn't help, but he is still attracting hatred crazily. Is this a human thing? Lu Chuang suddenly widened his eyes, pointed to the distance and shouted, "What are you doing? Don't stop. Yes, you are invisible. Don't think I can't see you being lazy. I tell you, it is broad daylight now. Your invisibility is of no use to me." Black Jason. Due to the attack on the Sentry Secret Service some time ago, Clarice was rescued in full view. So much so that now the entire Sentry Secret Service is boiling, frantically searching for traces of Mutants Underground organization, and all this is heard by the sage who is in charge of monitoring network communications. Therefore, the actions of the Mutant Underground organization have become more cautious recently, for fear of retaliation from the Sentry Secret Service. In order to avoid being discovered by the Sentry Secret Service, the building materials purchased by Lu Chuang cannot be directly transported to the Mutant Underground organization base. Clarice can only open the portal to the temporary warehouse, and then slowly transport the building materials. Ever since, except for the female members, all the male members of the Mutant Underground organization were captured by Lu Chuang. Even John, the leader of the Mutant Underground organization, is no exception. With a steel body, John is simply a natural talent for moving bricks. Only one person dragged a truck full of building materials and ran out, but after carrying it repeatedly for more than a dozen times, John was exhausted in the end. Originally, Lorna was also a good candidate to move bricks, but she had to stay at home as little Peter's assistant. For Lu Chuang, this matter was the most important, and other things could be put aside. It's almost finished moving, work harder and move faster. Lu Chuang commanded leisurely, and everyone was hardened, and their fists were hardened. This guy really doesn't hurt his back when he stands and talks. If you have the guts, come and move it. Lu Chuang turned a blind eye to everyone's gaze. He was only in charge of renovating the base, and the rough work of moving bricks was definitely handed over to other people. Seeing the movements of these men slow down, Lu Chuang took a sip of his fine wine, and said to Sophia, who was standing under the sun umbrella and watched all the time, "Ask your sisters to bring them drinks, and ask them if they need a rest." Sophia nodded, found a few tall and slender sisters, walked to the men who were carrying materials, delivered drinks and handed them towels to wipe their sweat. When Sophia and other women asked if they needed a break, the men looked disdainful. "Haha, what are you kidding? Do you still need to rest for this little work?" "That's right, it's not me who blows. I can move all the remaining materials by myself. Woman, please get out of the way, you are blocking me from moving bricks." This group of men did not know where the sudden physical strength came from, and the appearance that was about to be exhausted disappeared instantly. The legs that seemed to have had a stroke just now stepped forward again, and they shuttled back and forth across the purple light curtain. John was even more conspicuous. Under Fia's gaze, he directly pulled 2 carts of building materials. Looking at this group of men desperate to save face, Lu Chuang curled his lips. "Hey man, as the saying goes, men and women can work together without getting tired." Soon, all construction materials were moved to the Mutant Underground organization base. Ignoring the tired men lying on the ground, Lu Chuang drank the wine in his hand, straightened the yellow helmet on his head, took out a prepared blueprint from his arms, and began to arrange the next transformation plan. First, there is the issue of containment at the base of the Mutant Underground organization. The abandoned bank has limited space, and the maximum number of people it can accommodate is less than 100 people. Moreover, on the premise that everyone is crowded together, whether it is daily life or nightlife, it will bring various inconveniences, so it is very important to expand the space necessary. Considering the situation of Mutants Underground organization, it is obviously impossible to expand the territory outward. Ever since, Lu Chuang had a bold idea. Since you can't expand outward, let's dig underground. You must know that in many film and television works, the bases of those mysterious organizations are built underground. Anyway, the Mutant Underground organization is a group of outlaw lunatics, and they are not afraid of trouble from the Land Management Department of the American government. Knowing Lu Chuang's plan, John hesitated. "Is this possible?" "Don't worry, give me a little time, it's not a problem to empty the area," Lu Chuang said confidently. "Okay, just do as you said." At this point, John can only choose to trust Lu Chuang. "I will arrange some people to assist you in your work later, and you can ask for anything else." Lu Chuang waved his hand. "It doesn't take much, just give me blink and eclipse. In the following time, John and the others rarely saw Lu Chuang, and Clarice and Marcus often disappeared. But no one asked about Lu Chuang's whereabouts, for fear of hindering Lu Chuang's work. Anyway, they still have Clarice and Marcus involved, so there is no need to worry about the situation. On the 4th day, Lu Chuang, who was holding a hammer, suddenly found John, and said with a straight face, "I tell you some good news. After several days of unremitting efforts, I have completed the construction of the new base." Quote? John's first reaction was that Lu Chuang was teasing himself. How long has it been? Even if the most professional construction team is invited, it is impossible to complete the construction so quickly. Lu Chuang didn't explain much, and directly took John to a place not far outside the base. Immediately afterwards, John saw a never-before-seen toilet appearing in front of his eyes, and repeated confirmation several times. After John made sure that he was not hallucinating, he said with a strange face, "Is this the result of your construction in a few days?" "That's right." John hesitated to speak, and finally couldn't help asking, "Didn't you mean to build a new base? Why is there only one toilet?" Lu Chuang looked contemptuous. "Brother John, as the leader of the organization, you should improve your knowledge. Haven't you seen the movie? Usually the toilet is just a superficial disguise. The real secret actually lies elsewhere." While speaking, Lu Chuang pressed John on the toilet, and then pressed the flush button of the toilet. Caw caw caw. Accompanied by the sound of mechanical operation, the interior of the toilet suddenly fell, falling like an elevator. After a few seconds, John's eyes widened. This is. At the moment John was shocked to find that there was a huge amounts of space hidden under the toilet, and the total area of the entire space was even larger than the abandoned bank. "Welcome to the new base," Lu Chuang said beside him. After the toilet elevator stopped, Lu Chuang patted the dull John and led him into the new base. There are gray textured tiles under the feet, and the four walls are composed of white and light blue. The indoor light is very bright. Although it is an underground floor, I don't feel any abnormal breathing. Generally speaking, it gives people a very comfortable feeling. When the two walked into the new base, John saw Clarice and Marcus. At this moment, John finally came back to his senses, and spit, "You guys built this." If Lu Chuang hadn't brought him here himself, he might have wondered if there was such a space hidden here in the first place, but he hadn't discovered it before. Clarice shook her head. "No, I'm just responsible for opening the portal, and the construction aspect has nothing to do with me." Marcus also shook his head and said that it had nothing to do with him. "I'm in charge of the lighting, and toilet." Having said that, Marcos has some resentment. "What is it that makes you have the illusion that I'm good at flushing toilets?" In other words, Lu did it all by himself. John looked at Lu Chuang in disbelief. Such a large project in front of me was actually completed by one person, and it was still in such a short period of time. What a big deal. The speed of construction in my hometown is normal. If it wasn't for the lack of materials, I could continue to expand. Lu Chuang said with some unfinished thoughts. He had been having a good time these days, as if kind of like playing Minecraft. He found that the characteristic effects of super high school architects covered an extremely wide range, not only including basic construction, but also skills such as moving bricks and digging holes. In fact, it took Lu Chuang less than half an hour to dig out such a large space. At that time, Clarice and Marcus were both stunned, wondering if this guy was reincarnated from a mole. With the blessing of a super high school architect, Lu Chuang easily built a new base with only one person. If Lu Chuang and Mr. Pei are thrown on a deserted island now, it is estimated that he can directly transform that deserted island into a holiday base, small island. Unbelievable. John never imagined that Lu Chuang built a brand new base by himself, and it looked decent. It should not be that kind of bean curd project. He thought it was true. The new base in front of us was built by Lu Chuang himself, and there is absolutely no problem in terms of building safety. After being shocked, John looked at the new base and became more and more excited. The environment here is much better than the abandoned bank. Although it is more troublesome to get in and out, it is better because the location is hidden enough. Who would have guessed that there is an underground base hidden in the toilet? You know, in order to achieve the effect of deceiving people, Lu Chuang deliberately made the toilet like a normal toilet. The toilet is real, and the shit is real, and there are basically no flaws on the surface. All in all, John is very satisfied with this new base, which is beyond his expectation. "Lu, you've done a great job." John didn't hide his admiration at all. Lu Chuang remained humble. "It's all thanks to the help of Clarice and Marcus." "Actually, we didn't help much," Clarice said shyly. The task Lu Chuang gave her was very simple, that is to use the portal to transport away the soil that Lu Chuang kept digging up, and Marcus's task was even simpler, standing directly on the ground as a humanoid light bulb to shine for the new base, until the new base is connected to the cable. Looking at the empty new base, John said, "With the new base you built, we can accommodate more homeless mutants, but it would be better if the space is bigger. If Lu Chuang continues to expand, perhaps their place will become the largest base of the mutant underground organization." Lu Chuang said happily, "As long as the money is in place, you can build the entire underground into a base without any problem." When it comes to money, John, who is a millionaire, loses his mind in an instant. But he didn't give up his thoughts, looked at Clarice and Marcus, gritted his teeth and said, "Can we sign a few more IOUs? You can take photos as you like, and I can pose in any pose you want." Fortunately, Lu Chuang is not drinking now, otherwise he would definitely spit it out. Lu Chuang rolled his eyes. "Beforehand, those photos are all wearing clothes. Please don't be so weird, and do you think I'm a fool? You have the ability to afford so much money." There was an embarrassing expression on John's face. Now he still has two huge sums of money on his body, and he has not even made up the odds. I can't really follow what Lu Chuang said. Go to the elephant country and debut as an idol. That's the end of the topic. John dismissed the thoughts in his mind, and refocused on this new base. After pondering for a moment, John immediately decided to move the base camp of the Mutant Underground organization here. Definitely, John wasn't stupid enough to tell everyone about it. After all, there are some mutants in the organization who are destined to leave, and they just use this place as a temporary residence. If one day they are accidentally captured by the Sentry Secret Service, it is difficult to guarantee whether they will disclose the information here to the Sentry Secret Service. John had no choice before, but now his idea is to treat this new base as a secret base, where only members of the Mutant Underground organization, or mutants who choose to stay here for a long time, live. The abandoned bank is used as a temporary base to accommodate those mutants who stay for a short time. After arranging the transfer of the base camp, John found Lu Chuang again. "Lu, I have already contacted Ivan. She agreed to meet with you. The time is tomorrow. This is the location." After receiving the note from John, Lu Chuang was overjoyed. "Well done. According to our agreement, your debt will be offset by 100,000 United States dollars, and I will give you 50,000 United States dollars as a personal donation." Hearing that he got 50,000 United States dollars, John fell into deep thought for a moment. People will change after all. In the past, John would keep 50,000 United States dollars as an emergency fund. But right now, John has only one thought on his mind. How many meters can 50,000 United States dollars expand their new base? The next day, Lu Chuang came to Broadway according to the appointment location. John, as the contact person of both sides, did not follow. Due to the transfer of the base camp, now he has a lot of things to deal with, and there is no free time at all. Walking into an apartment, Lu Chuang found the house number on the note and knocked on the door. "Who are you?" Soon, a woman's voice came from inside the house. "I'm Lu Chuang, John should have told you," Lu Chuang said in a deep voice, quite a feeling of spy underground connection. "Hold on." A few seconds later, the door opened slowly, and a long-haired woman in a formal suit appeared in front of Lu Chuang. After seeing Lu Chuang, the woman's expression seemed calm. "I've been waiting for you for a long time, let's go into the room and chat." After speaking, the woman returned to the house on her own. Lu Chuang looked as usual, and followed the woman into Qian Hao Hao. The light in the room was very dim, and the curtains covered most of the windows. Through the weak light, it could be seen that there was no trace of life in the house. Obviously, this house was just a temporary point. The woman sat down and said calmly, "I'm Ivan. I heard from John. You seem to have some questions to ask me, right?" "Yes." Lu Chuang nodded, and said bluntly, "I want to ask you about the X-Men, because I heard from others that you were suffering from contact with the X-Men." Ivan narrowed his eyes slightly. "Oh. Who did you listen to?" Anyway, John can be regarded as his acquaintance. Lu Chuang felt that he couldn't betray him, it's just gossip. Ivan stared at Lu Chuang for a while, then slowly said, "Yes, I have been in contact with the X-Men." Regarding Lu Chuang's inquiry, Ivan directly admitted it. Lu Chuang's eyes lit up, and he asked, "So you've seen the X-Men, right?" Ivan didn't answer. She looked at Lu Chuang and said, "Looking at you, you don't seem to be surprised or suspicious of the existence of X-Men. I'm curious, why do you want to know about X-Men?" To most mutants, the X-Men are a made-up story. However, Lu Chuang reacted as if he was convinced that the X-Men really existed, which surprised Ivan. Lu Chuang pondered for a few seconds. "Do you believe in light?" "Ivan." Lu Chuang didn't blush. Zonko came. "You don't know, my childhood dream is to become an excellent X-Men. I believe that X-Men is absolutely true, so I searched everywhere for information and clues, in order to be able to find the X-Men. Ivan pondered upon hearing the words. What Lu Chuang said was reasonable, it was hard to judge whether what he said was true or not. However, before that, Ivan had learned about Lu Chuang's ability and some of the things he had done through the information disclosed by John. Will not agree to meet with Lu Chuang. After a few seconds of silence, Ivan suddenly said, I can answer your question, but in exchange, I'll be busy. Talk about the conditions first. Lu Chuang said calmly. Although he wanted to find out the truth behind the X-Men, he would not be foolish enough to show this eagerness on his face. Ivan leaned forward slightly, and the light shone on her face. I know you helped John build a new base, I saw the photos, and you did a great job, so I want you to help me build the same in other cities. The base, definitely, I'll pay for in hindsight. Lu Chuang realized in an instant, no wonder the other party agreed to meet, it turned out that was the idea. John once said that Ivan is setting up branches of the Mutant Underground organization in various cities to provide safe houses for the homeless mutants. Naturally, there are many bases like John's, and Ivan's purpose is to let him work for these branches all build an underground base. Good guy, it's really the Mutant Underground organization, and all the mutants have gone to live underground. Lu Chuang shook his head. I refuse, I am very busy and don't have time to build so many bases, at most I can only help you build 2 bases. Ivan frowned, this condition did not meet her initial expectations at all. Too few, build at least 5 bases. There are only 2 seats, no bargaining. It takes about 4 days to build a base, and he has to run around across the city. Lu Chuang is not willing to waste so much time on this kind of thing. With this time, he might as well accept a few more commission tasks. Ivan still wants to bargain, but Lu Chuang's attitude is very firm, let him don't even think about being a coolie for a long time, at most build 2 bases, whatever he likes. No way, Ivan finally had to agree to Lu Chuang's conditions. Okay, then build 2 bases, and I will send you the location when the time comes. BDEH. After the 2 parties reached an agreement, Lu Chuang asked unceremoniously, since I have agreed to your terms, should you answer my question now? Ivan knew what Lu Chuang was referring to. This time she did not hide anything, she nodded and said, you were right, I have met the X-Men, to be precise. I have met the leader of the X-Men. You're talking about Professor X, aren't you? You actually know that one. Ivan was very surprised. Although the story of X-Men has been handed down to this day, the story has never revealed what kind of X-Men is, nor has it revealed who the founder and leader of X-Men is. But when Lu Chuang said this name suddenly, Ivan was deeply surprised, and she took a deep look at Lu Chuang. It seems that you know more than I thought. Yes, I have seen Professor X. Please speak slowly, I can't write. At some point, Lu Chuang took out a small notebook and a pen from his arms, and recorded carefully to avoid missing any key information. Ivan's expression was a little stiff, and his emotions were incoherent. Thinking of the terms reached by the 2 parties, Ivan took a deep breath and pretended not to see it. She slowed down her speech and said, I was a lawyer at the beginning, and because my mutant identity was exposed, I lost my job and my life was almost destroyed. At that time, a person suddenly found me, he is X teaches. Wait, I want to confirm the version. The Professor X you mentioned, is he young or old, bald or hairy? Lu Chuang suddenly interrupted Ivan's memory, this matter is very important, he must confirm. Ivan, is it possible to make people talk better? He's an old man with no hair. That's the Professor X of Patrick's version. Lu Chuang definitely thought that, combining the 2 features, he could basically lock in the Professor X of Patrick's template, that is, the Professor X of the old man. Thinking along this line of thought, this can rule out all the time periods between the first battle and Dark Phoenix, because those time periods are Professor X in his youth, not only young but also with thick hair, unlike his age when I was a child, my head was so bright that even Hair Restorer couldn't save it. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.